I am here with the man, the guy, the dude, Dr. Don Jolly. I keep calling you Dr. Don Jolly because you are at Dr. Don Jolly on Twitter.
That's correct, Dr. Don Jolly.
You have a really great Twitter presence that is probably how I'm keeping up with you the most, just because you retweet and blog stuff a lot on there.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of get the impression that you kind of got on Twitter and subscribed to like as much shit as possible that was potentially interesting, and just reblog everything you find that you think is interesting. Would you say that's accurate?
That is absolutely accurate, yes. I got on Twitter, so I'm the editor-in-chief of Encyclopedia.Zone, which is a website for literary shitposting. I also have a YouTube channel that I do literary shitposting at as well. I usually read essays out loud on the air, and that's youtube.com/DonJolly. But on Twitter, basically, like, I come from the world of freelance writing. And I've been published in, a number of different magazines. I mean, I'm not like, a big shit guy in that world, but, I have been published in a few different places, and like wildly different places. And so I got into this habit of just like reading tons and tons of weird information, especially like weird internet information, with the ultimate goal of trying to turn it into something that's comprehensible to, the straight magazine writing world. And so when I got on Twitter, like, I had this sort of weird mixture of I'm sorry, could I check on the cat?
Oh yeah. I'll just explain for the podcast that Dr. Don Jolly did show up with a cat, a black cat. I did not know he was bringing a cat, but it wasn't a problem. We have space for a cat, but it seems the cat wants some attention. The cat wants to be friends with Dr. Don Jolly. We'll be returning after these messages.
Because I started off with this idea that it's like, okay, I'm going to be like Hunter... Like, I was working at the Revealer magazine, which is published by the NYU Center for Religion and Media. This would have been in 2015. And I had taken it upon myself to write this like Hunter Thompson-style column about the coming presidential election. And like, this is me in my ignorance. I thought that Rick Perry or somebody was going to get the nomination. And I was like, this is going to be an opportunity to talk about the religion of American politics. And it's going to be this, fear and loathing on the campaign trail 72 kind of thing, which is very weird. Yeah. That's a very weird thing, but it's not necessarily connected up with the world of internet weirdness. Yeah. Which is, as the internet became a bigger and bigger part of that election, I started to like, go back into this world that I've been, more directly involved in. Before I had been in the world of magazine publishing, I'd been shitposting on FIAD and on the Chans and stuff like that. So I started to say like, okay, well, I know about this world. I can dig into it, and I can like create a comprehensible, understandable thing about what's going on the internet right now, because it's really freaking people out as the Trump election is ramping up. And I got into this habit, this like obsessive habit of just following all the weirdest, especially political people I could find online, all like of all different stripes. And, it expanded from there into like, suddenly I was like, now I need to explain anime posting, and I have to explain like how anime plays into this whole thing. And now I have to explain like what alt-right how an alt-right podcast can like monetize itself. And like, it became this endless story that totally escaped the bounds of the magazine that I was writing for. Yeah. And it just became like my fucking way of life. So like, I'm not doing, when I got on Twitter, like I didn't think about it, but I just did like, what I've been doing since this project, like, since I started like really trying to investigate the internet, seriously. You follow a bunch of different weird, interesting people. And like when I retweet stuff, I'm retweeting it because I kind of see the Twitter account as an opportunity to kind of create this weird collage of information. It's like I retweet presidential candidates. I talk about...
I really appreciate it just because like I'm into that part of Twitter as like a collage aesthetic. And there's a lot of people who have really weird like combinations of things that they care about. And oftentimes it might be that like I really like some of their tweets and I don't like the other half, You have like a really interesting through line of what you retweet. And, like, a lot of it is political, but it's always somewhat like ironic or shitposty. Like it has to be from a somewhat detached perspective that like is analyzing the thing more so than like the super reactionary responses to things that are going on. And you don't really fuck around that much with like drama or internet bullshit. It's more like newsworthy shit, like a lot of Epstein stuff, obviously. Like,
Yeah.
And a lot of Encyclopedia.Zone is kind of dedicated to the idea of keeping Epstein alive in the political consciousness.
Yeah, I mean, this
shit posting.
So this is what, like I said that, you know, I've been shit posting on the internet for 20 years, and I've kind of had this Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde nature to my career for a long time, because like when you go to college and you like start, you know, prepping and dressing like I want to write at magazines, I want to work at Condé Nast, I want to be a fact checker at the New Yorker, like this is kind of this was my goal. You cannot talk about shit posting on the internet. People do not want to hear about the internet. Like if they think about it at all, they think about it as an existential threat to both their industries and like the fabric of society. Like they're scared of it. And mostly they just don't want to talk about it because they think of it as an embarrassing thing for kids. They think it's like the hula hoop, you know? So I was shitposting this whole time. I was building this writing career, but I always felt this frisson where it's like, I can never let these people over here learn about what I'm doing over here because they'd hate it. Like you're saying, I really appreciate saying that what I put on Twitter has like a shitposty quality, because like the shitpost is the generative engine of the internet. Like that idea of being sort of disconnected from your temporal identity and just like finding the fraction points in in the worst case, in the most personal case of trolling, like a person, or in the most like, you know, interesting, in my opinion, case, like an institution or an element of culture, like finding its weak points and then like using just the tools of internet posting to take advantage of those weak points and spread a message that can, you know, it can be destructive or it can be generative, but to spread a message. And this is the power that over the course of 2016, like it became undeniable. For a lot of people that were just like not interested in hearing it even, it became undeniable that like the ability to troll it's a way to grab levers of power and to change the way that things are working in society. So I think it's a very, very powerful thing. Like I like to have that shitposty style detachment, but I also am really committed to the idea of like this being a very powerful technology that needs to be used in the right way. Like it's contingent upon us as people that are on the internet and that understand it more than the people that are trying to regulate it or that are trying to make you afraid of it. I'm talking about like traditional media and, you know, elements of government, those sorts of things. Like people that view the internet as some sort of existential threat. Like it's our responsibility as people who like operate within the system successfully or semi-successfully, you know, in my case, because it's like when you're a shit poster, you're not trying to build, or when you're a troll or you're anonymous or you're pseudonymous or whatever, you're not trying to build an identity as anything other than like a functional tool that you can use for a little while and then get rid of. Like you're trying to just spread messages with the least possible exposure and blowback possible. Or the least possible amount of exposure and blowback. It's a very powerful thing, and people have gotten to the point where they're very good at it. And I think that it's contingent upon them to have, you know, to actually like enact the ethics that they keep criticizing everybody else for having. Like, it's very easy to be reactionary on the internet. It's very easy to be like, that guy's a fucking asshole, start an argument. It's a way for both of you to get more popular. It's incentivized behavior. But you're using, you know, a machine that has made it possible for you to have this conversation in the first place, to have an argument. And there's maybe like a better way to comport yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, something I get a sense from in your content, and especially your Twitter, is this idea that it's not really worth talking about things in the sided way that we do when the problems are things that affect everyone and are like something like, you know, just the oligarchical nature of like the tech companies, that is like it's not a left or right issue necessarily. It's you can frame it as like being extremely like capitalistic and like, oh, this is what, like, a lot of people will paint like libertarianism as like, this is what you want, is like insane corporate control, which is probably not the case.
Yeah.
But like you kind of present it as like, hey, regardless of the side we're on, look at the evil things these fucking people are doing. Like, it's just like, whether or not this is even connected to the money, it's just like clear that there is a path of sociopathical behavior between these like rich people who have lots of control, and like they're taking over the media, and like people who are connected to things like Disney are involved with this. Our presidents are involved with this.
Yeah.
And the Epstein cover up is such a just. It's such an instantly reality-shattering meme.
Yeah.
Like, for people like us, it's not necessarily, like, it's not outside of our expectations for something that would happen. But, like, it's like being given, like, the best acts possible to just break people's reality with. To just be like, hey, if you have any doubts about the fact that, like, the government's lying to you, or, like, that there's fucking conspiracy in the world, like, smash that right now. And that for that to become, like, a popular thought is, I think, a powerful thing.
It's an unbelievably popular thought. Like, this is the point, like,
and a shunned thought a decade ago. Like, in the Iraq War, you couldn't talk like that.
No. Well, but that's the thing, is that, like, the power of the information network is making it so that, like, all kinds of different viewpoints can get out there. Like, more so than they ever could. And I know that people say, like, well, there's tons of censorship on all the big platforms, and that's, of course, true. But it's way easier to transmit data that is not something that you would hear through traditional media sources now than it has ever been. You can transmit instantly to a global audience with a device that you hold in your pocket. Mm-hmm. That is a tremendous amount of power. And what I was saying, like, a couple of because I have a tendency to go off on digressions, but a couple of digressions ago, you were saying a lot of Encyclopedia.Zone is dedicated to keeping Epstein alive in the public consciousness. Yes. And it's like, okay, so I was talking about shit posting and saying that, like, I come from the shit posting world. I come from the trolling world. I worked with Sam Hyde. I've been on the Fuck You and Die Something Awful forums. I've been permanently banned from Something Awful because of a post I made on general bullshit that threw the board into disarray for a period of months, to the point where they suspended moderation.
Holy shit.
That story's coming up.
All right, I gotta hear that. That sounds exciting.
Okay, so I come from the trolling world, and when I went up and I did the straight writer thing, and like I was basically told by a woman who was kind of my mentor, kind of my rabbi in the straight writing world. She was like, look, you're not going to make a living. Like, nobody is making a living like Hunter Thompson anymore. Like, traveling around, getting the scoop and like making, selling the story, which is not exactly true. But, basically, like, I was making very, very little money. I was living in, like, increasingly desperate circumstances, and I had this crazy amount of student debt, which I had no way to repay. So, like, I'm getting more and more pissed off. All the rest of the trolls are living in similar, like, fucking nightmare hell scenarios. Like, if you ever, like, meet an internet troll in real life, like...
Doomers. We are doomers.
We're doomers, yeah. Like,
people who stay up all night, and we're always on the fucking internet.
Well, we're always on the internet because it's like, at least the internet is not like screaming at me or like waving a box cutter in my face, or like, if you're hungry and you don't want to be in the real world because all you've got is like cold loneliness and an empty belly. Yeah. Like, the fucking internet is a great place to vent your frustration. And then if you know what feels really good when you're fucking feeling dispossessed and pissed off and like you've gotten a raw deal by life, you fucking find a big functioning piece of society. Like, let's say, for example, let's find an internet message board. And, you got 10,000 people and they're posting their epic bacon Reddit memes. And then maybe you imply somebody at the top of that message board is trafficking in child pornography. And see, if you said that to a community of people that was not already inclined to believe it, then they would just say like, oh, fuck off. No way, that moderator is doing that. But if you say it to the right community, at the right time, thousands of people will say like, yeah, that's probably true. Fuck the mods. And then the whole thing will fucking pull itself down around its ears. And it's not happening because you're Woodward and Bernstein. You got some kind of scoop. Like, this is the story. I'm telling it in a weird way, but this is what I did on GBS. Yeah. But, for example, theoretically, this is what I did on GBS. It was like there was a moderator of the Something Awful TV boards named Aaron Patrick Nadler turned out to be a convicted pedophile. Mm-hmm. And so then there was this meme that started to kind of grow on the forums, and it was bannable to post it. Mods knew, to imply that the moderators of Something Awful knew that this guy was a pedophile and that they were covering for him. So I posted on GBS and I said I had proof. They immediately permabanned me. But the thread filled up with hundreds and hundreds of replies of people saying, like, why'd you ban him?
Yeah.
What are you trying to hide?
Right.
And it turned into this multi-hour drama thing where it's like, they get in touch with me through back channels and they're like, you got to come back and let everybody know where your proof is. And so I come back, I hang out for 45 minutes just watching the thread because people have noticed I'm online and they're like, he's typing it up. It's coming. Oh my God, the proof. And then my proof post after this whole night of drama was just lol. So I typed 3 letters. And then I got quoted by another Fiad guy who said, "Terrorists win." And then the whole thing flew the fuck apart. Like, they had to suspend moderation because people were just breaking the GBS rules too much. I mean, it's like, and of course it's a piddly little thing to like destabilize an internet message board. I did that in 2013, and I actually did it from the offices of the Revealer magazine on Broadway in New York. So I'm sitting here at the end of one of my first days, like getting paid for my writing. Mm-hmm. At the time I was also doing some editing work, or admin work for them. And so I'm like in the middle of the city. I'm feeling like, I'm living the dream. And then I get on fucking Something Awful and I get permabanned. And then I got to live 2 dreams in one night. It was excellent. But anyway, what I'm saying is internet posting is very fucking powerful. And what we're doing with the Epstein thing is like, what if you took control of or not take control, but like you take something like that, like an approach like that. I don't know if the people I was talking shit about on that forum were child sex traffickers. I suspect that they weren't. I just wanted to fucking bust something up. But we have actual proof at this point of child sex traffickers adjacent to and in positions of power.
The Epstein is like almost self-satirical in that it is like unbelievably over the top.
Yeah.
That he has like statues of the like those Greek like satyrs or whatever that like, in the mythology like fuck children all over his mansion, and he like identifies with these creatures. And he carries around Lolita and insists it's his favorite book, and flies a plane called the Lolita Express that he flies billionaires out to fuck kids at.
Yeah.
And like, this is all known stuff, and it's all confirmed. And so anyone implicated in it at all, which everybody is, Bill Clinton,
Trump,
anybody.
Alan Dershowitz, that's the one that stings.
Fucking Matt Groening,
yeah, he got a foot massage. The Clinton Global Initiative was co-founded by Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah, Prince Andrew. Prince Andrew is in there,
and there's like suspicion of evidence of that, right, at this point or something.
Well, no, there's like photographs of him with the girl.
Oh,
Chris Tucker. Apparently,
yeah.
No, we got like. But the thing is, like, you can name names, like, and it's fun and it's interesting. But like the thing that's so powerful about Epstein is it's like this is a JFK level moment.
Yeah.
Because it's not just that he died. Yeah. It's that he died, like, because this trial was looming. There was a lot of seized evidence. The Southern District of New York apparently has, CDRs and some kind of like hard drive thing that he had been keeping with video files on it. Like, this was the implication of some of the early reporting. And we're not sure exactly what the status of it is, but like there was this moment where it looked like more information about Jeffrey Epstein and like what he's been doing, and it was going to come out, and then he died.
I mean, when you think about like there being videotapes in possession, it's like, what if there's a video of like Bill Clinton fucking a little girl on these tapes? Like,
yeah,
that would completely radically like that would be like, I think what this has done to like the reputation of Bill Clinton is really bad amongst like smart people, but most people aren't really thinking about it. That they're just like, oh well, you know, still Bill Clinton. It's like if they had tapes of it, people would be like, oh, like we have to like never talk about this president again. Like we have to pretend we didn't elect this guy. You know?
The thing is though, it's like even beyond like Bill Clinton or Trump, the specificity of it. Yeah. It's like we've got powerful figures, both a sitting president and a former president who exerts a great deal of political will across the world thanks to the Clinton Global Initiative, of both American parties, buddy with child sex traffickers. It's like if you can look at that information and continue to say like, well, you know, the main thing going on in American politics is the fight between the right and the left. It's like the thing is, like, people think that if you're fighting someone, like, and this is something that trolls understand very well. If they think that if you're fighting somebody or you're in an argument with somebody, then you're helping to defeat their position, but you're not. No. Like, you can hold people in the suspension of constant antagonism, and that's actually how you create growing media communities. Yeah. Like, Something Awful, when I got banned from Something Awful, I went over to Something Sensitive, which was a descendant of the Something Awful Sycophant Squadron, or SAS. Like, all these big shitposty, like, troll boards, you know, like, they tend to bifurcate. It even happened to 4chan over fucking... I
mean, 8chan is, like, basically something that sprang from 4chan in this way, right?
But it's, like, it's the way that it springs from it is very important, because it's... the moderators won't let me talk about X, so I'm going to talk about it over here. And it forms an immediate alter community where it's like you get the 4chan, 8chan situation where it's like, oh, those guys on 4chan, like, they're bigger than us, but they're fucking cucks. And like 8chan talks about 4chan all the time. 4chan talks about 8chan all the time, and they both get bigger in their ways.
Yes.
You know. And this is Democrats and Republicans to a degree. It's not exactly like an internet community where it's like there's this recent split that we can like identify, because they're inheriting party infrastructure from a very different political world that existed under a totally different media economy. But like right now, and I think like post 2000, because you know, we could go back into talking about this in the 70s in broadcast television, but just to make it simple, like since the Bush administration, the second Bush administration, like there's this very particular game that's being played on media where it's like to 50% of the country, the president is always the worst person who has ever existed. And it started under Bush, you know, for our purposes, where it's like there's just a ton of content that's like, I'm going to hate on how stupid and dumb these people are, you know, the Daily Show kind of stuff, where it's not so much about like, here's what our ideas are. It's about, look at these assholes. Their ideas are so fucking stupid. And then when Obama came in, the right had to develop its infrastructure of, oh no, this guy is totally fucking illegitimate, you know? And once Trump came in, it swung back, but it also swung so insanely because now we depend on the president being this permanently fractious, we depend on having this like level of antagonism between the right and the left, to the point where the antagonism is the point and not actually any like deliberate exercise of political will. Like people don't even talk about political shit anymore in the way that, like, if you read really good reporting from the 60s or the 70s, or the way that people were writing about politics in the 20th century, where there is more of an understanding of real politics, at least in some cases. I mean, like, Theodore H. White is fucked no matter what. Like, people have always wanted to mythologize it. But the level of there's a deliberate antagonism that keeps the whole media sphere going, because basically everybody is factionalized, and the entire conversation becomes about getting one over on the opposite faction, as opposed to actually understanding structurally, like, what is going on, who's involved, like, what are the levers of power as they exist now. We don't even have that discussion anymore. We don't even begin to have it, because the whole media, like the whole like when I was working in magazines, like at one point I got an interview to do a column for the Religion News Service, and they were like, we want you to come and write a political column potentially. It didn't end up happening, but I was told straight up, like, okay, because of the way that we're getting this money, because the Religion News Service is run through a university, like, your job is going to be to get Democrats elected. Are you okay with that? And, like, you know, you get asked that question directly. If you have no money and you're just, like, trying to fucking hold on to any stable gig, which is the position of anybody who's trying to make a living writing or, like, producing analytical content for a popular audience, not a scholarly audience.
Right.
Like, you have to say yes. It's that factionalism makes whatever they're producing, like, inherently limited in its appeal, and it's not able to actually ascertain I don't think any political reality, because it's like, think about how different that job is. Your job is to get Democrats elected versus what the description of my job would have been if this column had worked out, which is I am writing about what role religion is playing in American politics today.
Right.
Like, you can literally be employed, you know, and it's not that, you know, the people who offered me that job are like some scheming Machiavellian, you know, whatever. It's that, you know, they exist in a media ecosystem where that's the job that's available. That's what they understand their role in society to be. And it's gotten to the point where, like, you know, popular political discourse has basically given up on being, like, not just, you know, I think this idea of bias or, like, objective or unbiased is really wrongheaded, but, like, it's given up on being useful. It's just about making you upset. It's about making you angry, and it's about making you, like, engage in compulsive media consumer behaviors to constantly validate that anger.
Right.
Yeah.
It reminds me of a recent Dick Masterson quote on Twitter where he said, somebody asked him, "What do you think will come first, Civil War II or World War III?" And he said, "Bitch, we're in the middle of both." All right, we're going to take a break to go eat.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Come back. Okay. So, we've been mostly talking about your Twitter, I guess, so far.
Yeah, kind of. We've gone a little off the reservation, but yeah.
But now I want to talk about your YouTube channel. Because
okay.
This is how I found out about you. Is that I was on Twitter and I just said, send me something cool that you found today to, like, my audience of 25,000 followers on Twitter.
Right.
And someone sent me your shootings and shitpost video. I have no idea who sent it to me. I have not investigated because I don't know how they know of you.
Yeah.
Because you are fairly underground, and I would say your audience is probably doubled on YouTube from me talking about you.
I think that would be an accurate assessment, yes.
Yeah. And this is, like, it's not the first time, because I have a reputation for directing people to good channels. There's a channel called Cat Girl Research Society that is, like, an anime shitposting channel that you would love, actually.
Yeah, actually.
And they, you know, I similarly put them on, and they gained, like, a similar climb in subs, but they were less, like, adamant about doing this consistently than you are. And, like, it's exciting for me when I discover a channel that I feel is, like, in an active state of growth and, like, looking to reach a bigger audience than they have. And it's like, well, if I like this as much as I do, surely my audience will also appreciate this if they really appreciate, like, what I'm doing, like, on a certain level. And, like, I don't talk about politics nearly as much as you do, although I do have the Whirling Dervish podcast where I scream about politics, and I you know, but I take I take odd stances. I'm not a sided guy, and there's people who think I'm a crypto-fascist. There are people who think that I'm a cuck. And I think I identify as trans publicly. I am not I'm not against the idea of free, like, Medicare for all. I'm a yang guy. Ultimately, I've become a yang guy. And you seem like you are relatively into yang as an idea. I mean, I don't know if you really like back all his policies or just consider him like the least shit candidate.
I mean, if you want to get off into the talk about Yang, I am very interested in Andrew Yang because I think he has the most the most persuasive political pitch maybe in the history of American presidential politics, which is like, you notice that especially nowadays as like the role of the president has become both like more imperial and, more heavily symbolic. A lot of times campaigns end up being about symbolism. I mean, this has been true since basically mass media campaigning became a thing. Morning in America again, the Daisy ad with LBJ. Joe Biden right now is running, like, when he started, his pitch was, I'm going to redeem the soul of America. Yeah. Like, that's the pitch. Think about how, like airy and metaphysical and abstract that is. Like, what does that mean?
It's fucking ridiculous.
What is practical about that?
Well, I mean, make America great again is exactly...
Well, it's exactly the same thing. But take any of those slogans, any of those, like, have a Coke and a smile, like, big concepts that are really meaningless, like that kind of political rhetoric, and stack it up in a normal person's mind against the sentence, hey, if you vote for me, I'll give you $1,000. So it's like, month. Oh yeah, I'll give it, every month, but let's just like, just $1,000. Yeah. You just repeat it all the time, $1,000. And it's like, you stack up like, hey, I'm going to restore truth and justice versus, do you want $1,000?
Yeah.
Like, let me tell you.
And then the reasoning for why you would get it is completely rational. And you listen to him describe what the future is approaching, and you go, actually, it might be necessary. It might be the best idea that any of these guys have, because I think it makes more sense. I don't know if you want to get too off into the weeds of this. This is the debate I'm supposed to be having with Vaush, and I keep bailing on.
Yeah.
But basically that I'm less in favor of the idea of raising the minimum wage than I am in favor of the idea of giving everybody an extra $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
And Vaush made a good argument in his video, anti-Yang video, essentially, stating that if like landlords know that everybody has an extra $1,000, they're going to jack up your rent. And I think that's a worthwhile concern because it does sound like the way human nature works. At the same time, though, the landlord also has an extra $1,000 a month in this gig. And not that I think that counters the scales or anything necessarily.
Yeah,
their power structure. And this will obviously affect people very differently depending on where they live. And if you live in New York, I think this is a way the fuck bigger deal to you than like if you live elsewhere. Well,
potentially not, because in New York, very often you have rent control, which is not a reality for most of the country in the same way. Okay, so to talk about like policy specifics and stuff, like this is maybe like an opportunity to explain something about like how I approach politics in general, because okay, so I was talking about like I worked at the Revealer and like I had that interaction with the Religion News Service. Like I have a master's degree in religious studies. I'm not actually a doctor except on Twitter. Yeah. But I do have a master's degree, and I have been published and cited pretty, semi-extensively because of my work on, various esoteric religious topics, but mostly Scientology. Like, I'm trained as a sociologist of religion, and I view American society today as, like, basically fundamentalist in nature and deeply religious. And politics especially is, I think, like the one of the most religiously organized sections of 21st century American society. Yeah. So I'm not even really interested in whether anything a candidate says is practical or if it's going to work. Yeah. Like I've read sociological books about like the way that like city power functions, or like the way that a small town or like a small town in mass society or city politics, like that kind of try to view it from the outside as like this is a phenomenon that is occurring between humans. And like, I'm not qualified. I'm not a public policy person. I'm not qualified to go in and dig through the Yang economics and be like, would this work? Right. All I can say is, the thing that I'm interested in is basically you've got these competing preachers who get up and they're like, this is the future. This is the future with me. And Yang is doing that. He has a very persuasive like, he has a very persuasive message that would basically justify an expansion of the welfare state without using sort of the third rail socialistic language that's such a turnoff to such a large portion of the country. Right. Like, he actually squared a circle that's been a big problem for leftists in America forever. At the same time, the thing about Yang is that he's basically offering, because there are a lot of people right now, we live in a very, we live in a bad situation, and especially people in our generation, are living in a bad situation. And so everybody has this kind of, this recognition that things are really unstable, things are really bad. Like, I am not making enough money to live, and, all of these things are very precarious. All these economic arrangements are very precarious. Yang is saying, we're going to come in and we're going to take care of you. Listen, federal government's got this. Yeah. And let me tell you, when you are flat ass broke, as I have been in my life, like, you will do a lot of shit for $1,000. Right. Like, the idea of having because, like, you can say as much as you want that it's like, this is going to give people more opportunities, or like, you'll be able to quit your job and be a YouTuber, dude, which I did. Like, if you see that thing where it's like 30% of American high school freshmen want to be YouTubers when they grow up.
Don't do that.
No.
Don't do that, kids.
No, but
don't do it.
How many people that are
unless you feel like if you feel like listening to this podcast, man, I wish I had been in that room talking, because I feel like I could have fended off the assault of words out of these two men's mouths. If you don't feel like you're capable of that, don't try to become a YouTuber. You're not worthy.
I mean, I don't know. I'm very new to YouTube as far as it goes, especially to like regular regular uploading. Yeah. But I think you should go for it, especially if you get the Yang bucks.
Oh, if you get the Yang bucks,
if you get the Yang
story.
Bucks, yeah.
Because like, and amongst my friends, like, I have several friends who are artists who are making like $300 a month because of like being connected to my podcast that I do with the rest of them. Like, I say my podcast in that sentence just because of the fact that my involvement with it draws a lot of attention to it. So I kind of, like, part of my incentive to do it is to help my friends, right, to promote their own shit. Because if I go on the podcast and my fans go to watch it and they hear them talk about their shit, they go watch that shit and they like that shit, So it's like, I want all of us to be making money. Right. But like, they really are very uncompromising in what they'll do, and they will live in shitty situations. Like, and they don't even really mind so much as long as they can make enough money that they can survive. Right. They just want to do the thing they want to do, Right. And have fun and have these great connections online. And like, they are all much more intimate with their fans than I am, and you are much more intimate with your. I don't even know if I call, like, they're clearly people who follow you are fans, but like, you have much more of a community of artists. Yeah, like a mutually respectful, like, you communicate a lot of respect for the people who you work with or who you think do good things. Like, I get sent lots of art by lots of people, and I don't respond to most of it, Yeah. Like, I will retweet stuff if it's pertinent to me or things I care about, but, like, if you were to just send me a cool picture you drew, I'm not probably going to respond. You probably would, and you'd be like, that's a cool picture, and I think you develop more of, like, these kinds of bonds with people because of that,
Yeah, absolutely.
And, but, like, it's not on a, like, I always am afraid that if you were to be too big, that, like, you would get too inundated with things and not be able to, like, have that tightly knit community.
Well, I kind of had the, I mean, like, I've never been super big, except in, like, this abstract way. Like, one time I wrote a story for Boing Boing that the editor told me had, like, over 1 million impressions. So I guess I guess in some way, like, I was, like, briefly, at least well known. But, like, that didn't gel into any kind of community. Like, I was very unsatisfied by the kinds of readers that I seemed to attract in the straight magazine world, because it just felt like there was a tremendous disconnect between the point that I was trying to make and, like, what they were willing to hear. Like, if you looked in the comment section or whatever. When I started Dagger magazine, with my publisher at the time, Matthew James, like our whole way of like we had enough money to do one print magazine, and we did it, and it was relatively successful. And I started putting up online versions of the issues, which were compilations originally. Like the first one is a compilation of shit posts that me and my buddy Max Roderick were doing, and that had been posted various places around the internet, and or that we had just been writing to each other over an email thread, and we put up a thing for submissions, and I didn't think we'd get any, but after the magazine came out and we got like even just a tiny amount of audience, I was immediately inundated with all of these like incredibly long, complicated artistic projects.
Yeah.
And it froze my blood. Yeah. Because the thing is, like, I've been in the position of writing to editors and saying like, hey, do you like is this good? Is this good?
Yeah. You've literally gone straight from like trying to find an editor who will look at your work to being an editor looking at a ton of people's work.
Well, and like a ton of people's work that is like the very first thing that I saw in it was, okay, these people don't have a venue.
Yeah.
Like there's so much talent. And like, the submissions that I got with Dagger, and like I feel really sorry if you sent a submission to Dagger and I never got back to you, but like I didn't get back to fucking anybody.
Yeah.
Because I got through the first page of the first like day of the flood, and like I couldn't keep going because it was like people were sending whole novels. People were sending like and suddenly it's like I've got 7,000 pages of stuff to like even just glance through. And I want to write people good responses because I'm like, if I don't, I know how bad it fucking feels to just get,
Yeah, that's why I don't respond to a lot of people, because it's like, man, I admire Mr. Rogers, who responded to every single fan letter he ever got.
Yeah.
That is time-consuming shit. You better be somebody whose job is that you do a show every morning consistently for about 2 hours, and then you have all fucking day to write letters to people, because I don't have that job,
Well, but what people want, what they really want when they are asking you, when they're sending you a thing, because like Dagger did not have the money to pay.
Yeah.
So I was really surprised that there were people that were willing to put in all this stuff for like, a non-pay, basically like literary, like a literary journal, like this small press thing.
They just want it to be shown on a cool stage.
Yes, exactly.
Which is, even what I'm attracted to about the magazine. Like, when you launched Encyclopedia.Zone, I immediately contributed an article that a couple, as soon as you launched it, I was like racking my brain to come up with something. I immediately wanted to be a part of it because I too want to launch my own e-zine. I wanted it to be a crossover, like right out the gate. Because I was like, we pretty much got in contact within like a day of me discovering you.
Because I was already a fan of the channel, and like it kind of like I went in my YouTube studio and I see like DigiBro followed you, and I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, and you did something that I like. You have to understand, the reason that you have the community around you is you did something that no one has ever done.
Yeah.
Which is immediately message me and say, dude, I'm also a fan of you. Thanks for the promotion.
Yeah.
Like, I've never gotten that. Even though, like, most people on the internet are just very timid about trying to reach out to each other. And, like, usually what happens, the way that I develop connections is I talk about stuff I like. So if I watch a video and I like it, I don't contact the guy on Twitter. I just talk about him in a video. And then he feels like, oh, I can now message DigiBro. Even though these people, like, could have messaged me anytime and just sent me their shit,
Right.
But it's like, I find out about it, and then, like, once I've sort of acknowledged that, they reach out. With you, it was like, I just followed you on Twitter, and you were immediately like, dude, can't believe you followed me on Twitter, I'm a huge fan. And I was like, you're a fan of me? What? Like, I had no reason to think that you knew who I was at all. And I had just watched all of your videos, I had just marathoned the whole page, because that's what I do.
Yeah.
If I discover a channel I like, I'm like, oh, fuck, I need to know everything this guy has to say so that I can get, like, a mental profile of him going forward when the next video comes out. I want to know where are we in the narrative,
Right, exactly.
So, like, right away, I was completely on board, like, felt like I had a firm understanding of where you were going with your channel. I was excited that you were uploading frequently.
Yeah.
And you contacted me right away, and you were like, I've wanted to talk to somebody about Gamera forever. Like, you pitched the Gamera thing to me, like, literally
like
the
day
day we
one,
met.
yeah.
And this is like a month and a half ago or so.
Yeah, this is very, very short time scale.
And we're recording this after having recorded this Chimera thing.
Yeah, which is excellent.
Yeah, I don't know the order of release, but these are all coming out on my channel, I think.
Okay, yeah.
Just as just a big Don Jolly crossover
This is the Crisis on Infinite Earths of Digi Don Jolly.
Yeah, I mean, and the funny thing about it is that there's I don't just do this because like I think it's like funny or anything. There's a practical application. It's like if I'm going to spend 2 days like blinking off the map of all of my responsibilities to hang out with you.
Yeah.
I need to have 3 videos to show for it.
Fucking A, man. Well, I really appreciate it. It's been a wonderful time, you know. And the thing about the internet, like I said, I always had this tension between like my internet work and like my quote unquote like straight magazine work. As I went deeper and deeper into the internet, and like, you know, I went into the troll community and then the anime posting community. I started watching a ton of YouTube. I started doing YouTube actually back at the old Dagger magazine. But when it came, like I had sort of experimented with all these different forms, and then I got to the time where I was like, okay, I know what I want to do here. And it's like Encyclopedia.Zone, in my mind, this is the site that I'm doing now.
Yeah.
It has a very, like, I feel like I have a very clear grasp over, like, what my goals are. It's like, I'm going to use the YouTube to promote the website. The website is going to be able to hold work from a bunch of different writers and artists, not just me. Yeah. And we're all going to, like, you know, it seems like to me right now the best way to gain audience for any project that you're doing is YouTube.
Yeah.
And
I know, absolutely, because it has built-in promotion shit.
Yeah.
Like, and it's a very collaborative medium, because it's like if you do make friends with people who are like you, then you get to just like hang out and make content out of that.
Yes.
And then that sort of intimate content is what attracts like the like patrons, you know, like people who like really care about your narrative as a person. And like, even if, because I think there's a distinction in your case. Like, I think you as a YouTuber are a guy who could be like, who could have like a Patreon and be like a guy who people really like are fans of you as a YouTuber. But like Encyclopedia.Zone is not that. Like, that's not the community of people who's going to be patroning you. That's the people who, like, you work with and you're going to be paying to contribute to, like, things you do. And I think it's an interesting zone to navigate when you start to become more popular, because, you know, there's a lot of people who want to cross that threshold and they want your sort of tutelage in doing it. And you kind of hope that your community will be vibrant enough that you don't have to be that present in that process. Like, you know, I think if, let's say, a young kid who was a fan of you wanted to try to get into Encyclopedia.Zone and his stuff was not very good, but he's trying to get you to read it, I would think that somebody else in that community might check through it and like give it a criticism or something, you know, just tell him like why this is not really like. Well,
the other thing is, it's like, I don't think there's really like, okay, so what you're talking about here is, so Encyclopedia.Zone, we have a message board.
Yeah.
And you could write me a 250-word essay or send me some writing and art, and you could sign up for the message board. So like, this is what I was saying about like when I was inundated with those submission emails.
Yeah.
We don't do that on Encyclopedia.Zone. Like, I want to build all of the stuff that is going to go up on the website itself. Like, we're going to do nice HTML layouts with illustrations for all the writing we publish there, which we can't afford to pay for the website yet because, you know, no money. But when we do like when your submission process is like, you're just literally like dumping all of your work in front of an editor,
right.
And it's like this private communication, which is instantly intimate because you're seeing somebody's creative work. You know, there's a lot of opportunity to handle that interaction poorly, and it's a very nervous interaction for everybody involved, both for the creator and the editor. Like, the thing with Encyclopedia.Zone is you could just get on the forums, and it's a much lower barrier of entry than having to like pitch a story and sell a story. And then even if you write something that I don't like I don't care. Right. As long as you're not writing something that's like, you know, aggressively, you know, nightmarish, or that's going to like get my fucking website scrubbed by the CIA.
Right.
Like, I don't care. maybe somebody else on the zone will like it, because I basically, like, what I'm trying to do very hard right now.
I mean, I want to emphasize that, like, despite my like weird fears about like things getting too popular and being bad, Encyclopedia.Zone is a very welcoming community and like a comfortable place. And like I posted a poem there recently that was just like an emo sad boy poem because I was really bored that day, and it was like that kind of nihilistic boredom that like that just like makes you write edgy poetry. And I posted it just on the zone. Like I didn't even share it with like my patrons or anything like that because I just didn't want I just wanted people to be viewing it as a completely independent art piece. And like I'm not going under the name Digibro on the zone, even though people probably know who I am anyways. But I just didn't want to draw attention to myself because like when I go, like if I were to show up in chat rooms of like people who someone in the group knows who I am, it draws a lot of attention, and like people just start asking me questions or like interviewing me, often shit that they could know if they watched enough of my videos or something like that. But like it's just like I worry about diverting the conversation from what is to me a much more interesting thing to observe.
Right.
It's like the culture that's already there because it's been around. Like a lot of these people have been around for a while, and like they do know each other. So like there is some sense of like I don't know. It's not like a gay little clique or anything like that. Well, it's definitely a thriving and inviting community for the time being.
Yeah, I mean, and
it's very creatively driven. It's mostly just people posting stuff that they made.
Yeah, it's the idea is we're trying to build a community of people that want to see interesting and different creative work on the internet without like they're not held together by a shared ideology. Like we've got people from all over the political spectrum. They're not held together by like a shared demographic identity or like similar taste in media. Like, there's whole hardcore anime posters, and then there's people that like think that just despise anime on the zone. I mean, despise is maybe a hard word, but like we want to get together and create a community of people that are like both producing and interested in consuming interesting outsider internet artwork. Like
the best thing about Encyclopedia.Zone is that I want to read what the other people wrote.
Yes.
And I'm used to going into forum communities where everyone is fucking terrible and the writing is fucking dog shit, and I don't like the reason I left forums is because most of it is just like basic bitch shit. Like, especially if you're in anime forums, there's just a bunch of fucking 14-year-old autistic people telling each other why they like their favorite shows, and it's garbage. So like, if you want to have an interesting anime discussion, you have to make a place where that can happen.
Right.
And I like to think my comments, even on YouTube, are like that. Like I have by far the best anime discussions I have are in my own comment section. Or like in my Discord. But like I'm glad that Encyclopedia.Zone is not a Discord group.
Well,
and it seems like it's been like there is one for voice chat, but like it's kind of trying to avoid ever becoming like a clique where you have to be there to understand what's going on.
Yeah, well, we don't want to be impenetrable, but we also like there's a very clear like plan to all of this, and I think that part of the community and part of the thing that pretty much the only thing that you have to get hip to if you want to be in the community is like we're not here. It's not an internet message board that's like about the acid test of your soul where we're gonna you constantly you got to have your guard up. It's like because coming from the troll community, it's like you have to have your guard up all the time because like you are working with people who's like maybe not their profession, but at least like one of their vocations is that they fuck people over because it's funny.
Right.
But people that are good at fucking trolling on the internet and shit posting on the internet have developed like a lot of really useful skills. And if you just kind of unclench the fist and all like recognize like, oh, hey, we all have this understanding of this crazy fucking information network, and it's given so much weird, interesting shit to our lives. You just be nice to each other and fucking enjoy like the good weird shit that comes down the pipe. And like one of the things that I really like about the zone at the moment is people don't really like if someone posts something that's not good, it just doesn't get replies. But nobody is like, hey, this fucking sucks. Like, fuck you. There's never an attitude of like you've done a bad thing by posting because like you haven't. I think it's actually impossible to post something that's a waste of time. Like, even if the only person who cares is you still like sat down, finished something, and broadcast it to the world. And either it catches on or it doesn't. You're not in charge of that part. Like, the act of posting and generating culture is in and of itself good. And who knows where it's going to end up, because maybe that like one sentence that you type into the chat box or that you put up in a forum post is going to get picked up by somebody else who's going to turn it into a drawing. Somebody else turns it into a comic book. It's like, that sounds like ridiculous, but that's the exact snowball that builds on the Chans and, you know, built on Something Awful back in the day. That's what message boards can do. And the only thing you need to do to like make it not a nightmarish experience is just like get people to fucking not take it too seriously and relax. And, you know,
I mean, the extremely Spartan presentation of the board itself is very, I think, like a huge contributor to its ability to be that way. Because it's like you have the board where you only post shit you made.
Yeah.
And, like, the level of presentation from the beginning is quite high. Like, the people who are writing here are good. You know, they might not be, like, anybody who's been published even the way you have, you know. But they are good writers, and they clearly deserve to be... Like, Zombie is fucking great.
Zombie is fucking amazing,
That dude who... I mean, I've read a bunch of short stories. I haven't even kept track of everybody's fucking names because there's so many good posts I've read.
Space Lions, Andrew J. Wilson, Stained Haynes, Kobold, great cartoonist. We've got Salient Abdicant, who's working on a video game project. Like, we got a lot of good people right now, and we have even more that I need to approve. But I'm, you know, traveling cross country, so I'm spending too much laptop time. But you know, it's a community that means a lot to me, and you know, the ultimate goal of all this is we're going to create a spot for us to all share our work with one another, and to build as much community as we possibly can for this kind of like weird experimental. I mean, calling it experimental maybe makes it sound more artsy than it is. It's just because it's not like we're doing something like brand new. We're just like treating internet writing like literature, because it is.
Right.
Like,
well, and I really love what you're doing with the websites, especially with the Dagger Mag like integration, because like me and my friend last year were really trying to work on the idea of like the website as art form. You know? That like a website can be a book. It's a book you read in an unconventional way, and like there's been sites designed sort of that way for a long time, particularly like brand tie-in sites or like the Gorillas website or something like that. You know, you can make these kind of crazy multimedia experiences through what I like to call browser tunneling, and I was really obsessed with this concept for a while, where I like at one point was trying to make a choose your own adventure game. That was veiled, because you have to click on the images to continue, but if you click on different parts of the image, it would have different effects and take you to different pages to continue the story. So, like, you know, you kind of don't even realize what pathway you're going down as you read it. And there's an element of that kind of like going deeper into the center ring of this thing that you get from the website, where, you know, you're on the front page and there's tons of different things. If you go down any one of these avenues, you're going into like another world. You know, you're going into a different color aesthetic, a different presentation, a different art style, different writers possibly, you know, possibly a whole different culture even. Because like I would say Gorefest is like its own thing, and then the forums are their own thing, and then, you know, the Dagger preservation articles are their own thing. And there's not really a connection to the old Dagger YouTube channel, but I assume that's partly because that's not being run by you anymore.
Yeah, that's so me and the publisher of Dagger had some disagreements, and I decided I was gonna go off and do my own thing, and that's Encyclopedia.Zone. Like, and when it started, it was like, you know, I had this. Basically, the plan is just use YouTube to promote the site, use the site to promote print publications, which we're going to start putting out, and, you know, kind of build it in such a way that we can pay the people that are in the print magazine.
I'm curious, what's coming, because you said that you're planning to do a Kickstarter for the print magazine soon.
Yeah, the hope, like the reason I'm relocating cross country is I'm going to someplace with cheaper rent, where it's like sort of more doable for me to build up to get some cash and build up a little press. And so we're hoping to do a Kickstarter before the end of the year for our first print issue, which we actually have most of the writing and art for.
But you're also planning to do a digital issue of this as well, right?
Well, this is going to, like, we're going to keep uploading the site with, like, you were talking about how every page is like a different layout, a different design. Like we just launched Encyclopedia.Zone, the site itself, like last month. Like it went up, I think, the end of August. And, I mean, actually,
there's a lot to read on there. So like, you could fucking spend this month doing this. Like, if you're listening to this right now and you're just now taking an interest in this, if you want to get in before this site changes for the first time, like, you might want to start now. There's a lot of fucking shit if you go through all the Daggerman e-archives, and there is some amazing stuff in there. Like, the Halloween edition, issue number 4, the 3 versions of Satan story in particular.
Yeah, that's by Max Roderick.
It's like a mini novella, sort of. It's on the, like, it took me probably half an hour to read, and the prose is fucking beautiful. It's 3 different short stories about 3 different versions of Satan written in totally different ways that are fucking captivating and fascinating and thematically interesting. And also so opaque as to have no obvious meaning and like to seem like a complete shitpost.
Yeah.
So it's genius shit.
Yeah, it's. I mean, Max Roderick is an absolute genius. He's also in Austin, which is where I'm moving, and I consider that to be a big plus. The whole idea of shitpost literature is like, it's something that's been so apparent to me, hanging out in these these forums and on these message boards. It's like there's always these little literary experiments and these little literary jokes that like come out and accumulate. And to me, they've always been the most fascinating thing going about these sites. Like, much more interesting than the trolls and the ops and the arguments and all that stuff. As funny as it can be, like, if you just give, if you start developing that out with people, it turns into very interesting work very, very quickly. And, providing a venue for it where, like, every post, like when we put up a post on the Encyclopedia.Zone main page, like, I'm not just throwing it up on a WordPress blog. It's like each all the pages of the Encyclopedia.Zone are done in pure HTML.
Okay. What is so impressive to me is they, like, a lot of them more literally are painted, and all of them look painted. Like, every page of the zone looks like a handcrafted to have, like how will this text best be presented on screen? Like, if it's just an index, like, let's design it around that. Like, every page is unique for, like, the purpose it serves. And the 4th issue is a web page that is painted.
Yeah, Max McDermott did all of the he did a full, like, acrylic painting, like, issue. It's a painted website.
So you read this site where you're reading the text, like, let's say Center Justified in the case of the Satan 3 forms of Satan, Center Justified, full column, and, like, very nice looking headers on each section, very distinct. You really get the sense of it being 3 stories. They're all about the same length, so it looks nice. And, like, surrounding the central text brick of this, the entire rest of the page is a fucking painting. And it's this very bold, colorful, haunting, Halloween themed painting. I've never seen a website that looks like that before. Like, I was sincerely just like, wow. Like, this inspired me because, like, I've been obsessed with the idea of finally doing a print magazine since I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I talked about this extensively in other places, but, like, I've been so obsessed with doing a print magazine, and, like, even though I have thought about, like, artful website layouts, and I don't know code, so I've not been, I've not attempted to do, like, a deep HTML project myself, but, like, I see all the potential in that, and, like, wish I was doing that. And then when I saw what you guys did, I was like, fuck, like, this is the way to do a magazine as a website. Like, this is the best layout I've seen of that. So I wanted to be a part of it instantaneously. Like, the second I saw the website, I was like, it will be worth it for me if, like, my work gets laid out on an HTML page in an interesting way, possibly beside some kind of interesting art or whatever editorial decision was made to center it with, because like I do everything by myself, you know, in my career. I work with artists sometimes, but I don't hand my work off to an editor ever, you know? Like, I mean, I do when it's like a literal video editor, but I mean like an editor who is going to like decide what my work, like where it is in the magazine, what is it going to look like in presentation. And like to know that somebody who could do it well is going to handle my work would be exciting to me.
Yeah.
So like that's why I would want to write for it for free. Like that's why I'm willing to be like, oh yeah, take my fucking script. Like, and I haven't even I made a text doc so I could show it to my patrons, but like I'm not going to release it publicly. Like I wrote it for the magazine.
That means a lot. No, I mean the whole theory of like, you know, I do all the HTML layouts myself, so I really appreciate the kind words. I do think it's a valuable thing to give somebody, to be able to give them a presentation where it's like, you know, it's easy to sort of think of, especially now that like there's so many people that are like writing, that are like doing that kind of creative work that just never interface with an editor. There's a tendency to look at editors as like their primary job is just being a gatekeeper, and it's like not, you know, it's not a noble profession, but it absolutely is.
I think the best form of editing is about trying to artistically craft a vision that has a cohesive sense to it. And like if your work gets left out, it's not because your work is bad. It's that it doesn't have a place in the narrative being formed in the editing. You know, particularly with a magazine like Dagger, like issue number 4 is very sparse, and I know that's partly just because there weren't as many people working on it, but it's very pointed. There's a clear thematic tendency throughout it all. The writing matches the artwork, you know, like it feels cohesive. So it's like if somebody were to submit something that just, you know, broke that cohesion, it would be like, well, it's not a matter of this being good or bad. It doesn't belong in here, you know?
Yeah, well, that's one of the challenges that I'm going through right now, because I'm putting together the first Encyclopedia.Zone update. And like I said, I think it's a very valuable thing to like create an attractive website layout that like just is a great way to read your article, that takes your article seriously and makes it look different than all the other articles on the website, because it, you know, it deserves classy visual presentation. Like trying to get, because we have so many good posts on the forum, and everybody is writing with this understanding of like this could end up on the main page, kind of in the way that like if you were putting up Photoshops on something awful back in the day, it might end up on a Photoshop Friday, right? Yeah. Like, so I'm trying to figure out like, okay, what's the thematic unity with all of these different things? I've got the possum posts over here. I've got all the stories about Kobold's wife. I've got poems. I've got Photoshops where Samurai Jack is like cutting a laptop in half with his katana that I know I want to use. And it's like you have to figure out what the through line is, and like how to put all of these things together visually. It's a big challenge, you know, to make it like cohesive and good. And it's going to continue to be a big challenge to make it, you know, as regular as I want it to be. But the upshot of being like presented well and to be part of like a really cohesive, you know, well-structured package of writing, which is what like a magazine is or a website is.
That's why I'm such a big fan of magazines, because like even if there's a hugely divergent amount of information, like the format is what makes it cohesive and makes you like, and I'm obsessed with magazine formatting, you know, which is like why I want to do one so bad, because it's like I want to craft a magazine that has like such a clear identity that you would think like, oh, like this is like a centerpiece of a culture that exists entirely within the one man who made it by himself, you know, or like the 5 people who worked on it, and you know, just like view it as a relic of a culture that happened for some reason, you know.
Right.
I forgot what the fuck I was thinking about.
I mean, how good magazine layouts and like,
right.
You know, how magazines transmit information.
Yeah, it's exciting to see somebody else who's doing magazine style work, just because I'm such a big fan of it. And there have been people like, because magazines are a major part of anime culture history. You know, fanzines, I mean, in Japan they're still a thing, but like anime magazines have basically died at this point. And it's just the internet and like there's nothing that I find interesting that's going on in anime journalism in magazines or online, except for on YouTube, and in blogs. But the blogs get no readership. So like if you're not on YouTube, nobody's fucking paying attention. And most of the big anime YouTube channels are not doing anything journalistic. They're doing very pop media stuff. And like I'm not super journalistic either because I'm not learning Japanese and going to Japan and fucking interviewing people. But like, I'm doing at the very least gonzo community oriented journalism, you know, and so, like, you know, there have been people, there was this group called Colony Drop, who were they're like a group of older anime fans, like, oriented towards older shows. They were total assholes, kind of trolls. I was a lulk out of them for a little while. But they were guys who were really interested in keeping, like, old print media styles alive. So they did, you know, just a Colony Drop zine that had a bunch of just cool articles in it. And I was like, yeah, like, I want more of this. Like, I want more people doing this. I want this to come out regularly because I want to sign up to a subscription of cool articles mailed in a compelling package to my door, you know? Yeah. Like, I want to receive a magazine that, like, I can put on my coffee table and be like, this magazine is fucking awesome. Have you ever heard of The Baffler?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like, I had never heard of it until recently, and I just, like, randomly picked up an issue of it at the store, and like ultimately some of the articles turned me off, and I don't know if I read the entire thing, but just like the sheer audacious style of it, and like the amount of like just like creative political messaging and the imagery and just like the wacky postmodern like look of it was just like, man, I can't believe a magazine like this actually gets made, you know? And like it has a very strong political agenda, which is probably a big part of how that's possible. But like the idea of a magazine that was like an apolitical shitpost magazine that I would receive in my mailbox and then be able to read while I take a shit.
Yeah.
That is like the ultimate dream for me. So like what you're doing is like, you know, you've already offered to send me a Dagger magazine
I'll get
copy,
you a Dagger,
which I'm excited about.
Yeah.
But like, I want the Encyclopedia.Zone magazine. Like,
well,
I want it. I want it in my fucking hands.
Can I talk about it a little bit?
Yeah.
Can I talk about so like I said, we're gonna start this Kickstarter before the end of the year, and the goal, all we need is a very, like, we priced out the printing. We're gonna do one 32-page full color magazine, which is gonna be primarily essays and literary stories, and like there's gonna be some shit posts. There's gonna be a beautiful essay by Max Roderick, who wrote 3 Versions of Satan. Yeah. It's an essay about his father, who's the philosopher Rick Roderick. Who's actually very popular on YouTube. If you ever like take a look at Rick Roderick lectures, he's written this, you know, just monumental work of literature, in my opinion. It's a beautiful essay, and so the whole first publication is going to be kind of built around that. And I think we're going to have illustrations by Matt Rhoda, who's a very popular and very professionally recognized illustrator who's done like work with the New York Times and the New York Magazine and stuff like that. And he was
How do you know that guy?
Well, I met him when I lived in the city.
Okay.
And he did some work on Dagger.
So you did manage to make some like meaningful connections when you were doing your publishing.
Oh, I made tons of meaningful connections. I just like made no money and lived in a warehouse. You know, at least for part of it. I mean, I've actually been out of the warehouse for a little while.
It's just really interesting to think that it's not so easy in that world for people to just get each other work, because you're not like, you don't have an avenue to promote people who you're like friends with, you know? Like if I'm drawing a picture for the New York Times, I can't put like a notation like go subscribe to Don Jolly in it like I can on YouTube.
Yeah.
You know? Where I can like, it's very easy for me to promote anything I like, because like literally at just the end of a video I can just say, by the way, I saw this other cool video, you should go watch it. You know, I'm like, I've launched a lot of people's careers with my YouTube channel, you know, like and I've helped a lot of people to get way bigger than they were, you know. It just depends on what you want to do. And like, you know, I don't think you're somebody who's trying to get like explosively famous, so I'm not going to give you the kind of advice I give those kinds of people, you know.
No, I mean, it's been really great over the last few days getting to pick your brain about internet stuff and how to like manage a channel and not just a channel, because it's like you've done so many different things in so many different venues, and like even, you know, channels with different goals and different messaging.
I think people would be surprised how many revenue sources I have.
Yeah.
Because people sort of look at my Patreon and they think like, oh, this guy makes like $4,500 a month.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of money. And it seems like enough for me to live in this house and have the lifestyle I do. But I make more than that, you know, because I have YouTube ad revenue and I probably make like shy of $2,000 a month off of that. And then I have an Amazon Associates link. And when I talk about manga, I promote this link. So I make a couple $100 off of people buying manga through my link, and I get kickback from it.
Yeah.
Which is like the easiest way to make money if you're an influencer. Amazon Associates link, because all you do is put a link in the description, and whatever somebody buys after using that link, you get a kickback from it. And so there's no reason not to just always use people's links when you're buying shit, you know? So, like, it's just a great way for people to just, like, oh, I'm going to buy something anyways. I'll just use fucking Digibro's Amazon Associates link. Why not? Not that people do that all the time, but they do if they're buying the manga I talk about, you know? They'll for sure buy it through my link. So, you know, I've got stuff like that. And then I've got, like, you know, in the past I've done like Crunchyroll links and stuff like that. I don't put ads in my videos though. Like, I don't talk about fucking NordVPN or whatever fucking bullshit. I do not want, because I'll skip that shit when I watch videos. Like I will literally power through it because I fucking hate ads. And I use ad blocker unremittently, you know, like the only reason I make any money through YouTube is that you cannot ad block the app. And so many people watch my videos on the app. All the ad revenue I make is through people watching on mobile, which is surreal to me because I don't watch anything on mobile. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of getting off into the weeds and talking about how I make money. But like, it's just interesting the number of different like things that you can do to like be creative and be able to do whatever you want and also stay afloat without like selling too much of your soul. Like for me, if I'm talking about a manga and I say use my Amazon Associates link to buy it, like it doesn't really seem like a sellout move. I'm just providing you I'm kind of giving you a service. Hey, are you interested and you want to buy it? I already got you the link. You know, I'm just gonna get paid for doing that for you, essentially. I don't feel shame about that. But there are people who literally, like, the only things they talk about are things that are SEO relevant at that exact moment. Like, that date range of about 3 days that things are relevant online. You have to put out something in that little time period. And there are people, you know, who I sort of helped to get to a bigger popularity, who went on to, like, hire people, like, for $600 a month to do their SEO. And it's like, dude, read a Twitter hashtag. It's like that easy, you know, like that's how you track what's going on. But they think that that's like the way to go because they want to be as successful as humanly possible, and they're just taking like the path of least resistance to get there, you know? And
but like, what this is my question for like a channel like that is like, what if the content that you produce is entirely defined by what is going to grow the audience? Why are you growing the audience? Like, are you just doing it to...
I mean, I think a big part of it is clout and just, like, being able to make money by feeling like a celebrity. Because, like, for instance, just to call out the guy I'm talking about, Mother's Basement, everybody knows because I call him out constantly. He's a guy who, you know, he started dating a cosplay, erotic cosplay model who makes as much money as he does through, like, a hugely successful Patreon where she... like post pictures of her tits and fucking pussy to people on Snapchat, basically, and the like, you know, through the money that they make together, like she can get plastic surgeries, they can fly to cons all the time, they can live like they smoke pot all the time because they live in Canada, so like, you know, it's just like you get to kind of feel like a celebrity, meet a bunch of people who you admire because he was always name dropping people he would meet, you know, at conventions and stuff. So it's like you just get to kind of live this like pseudo rock star lifestyle, and like, you know, you get this kind of cocky attitude that you portray in your videos because you feel like you're kind of a badass and a celebrity. And like, even though that has a charisma to it that carries people through your videos, and if they're informational, which they are on some level, there is some intrigue in them, but people find that character kind of despicable. And they find it to be kind of sleazy, and especially when you're promoting like tons of fucking shit. You're doing all these ads, and you're doing sponsored videos, and it's just like, you know, you provide me, because there's so few great anime channels, if somebody's just doing like somewhat informative, opinionated content with maybe some bit of intrigue in it about popular shows, people are just driven to watch that even if they don't think it's the best use of their time. But it's like, for me, it's much more interesting to ask yourself the question, can I make just as much money as that guy without doing that? You know? And, like, with having a very different value set, because I don't fucking even like going to cons. I only like meeting famous people if I happen to think they are awesome, you know? And almost everybody who I like, I work with. Like, I like underground shit. I don't like stuff that's, like, mass media. Like, I'm not looking to meet any celebrities. I'm not looking to meet anybody bigger than me, really, because not a lot of people bigger than me are doing anything interesting. You know? If anything, I'm more interested in helping smaller guys who I think are more interesting than me. Like, you fall into a rare category of somebody whose work I, like, would rather people watch some of it than my content, you know? Where, like, I mean, if I want people to see, like, the D23 video, or like some of the Epstein content, or some of these things that, like, I think are important and potent messages that I have not done this research. I am not politically intelligent. I mean, I've learned almost every video you make. I learn a lot of shit, you know? So, like, I think these messages are important, and it's like, if I can signal boost these messages, it's like, it's the best I can do if I can't write those posts myself, you know? So that's why I try to, like, promote a lot of stuff. And, you know, your stuff falls into a category of something that, like, it's like, ooh, I hope people see this. But I also hope that, like, Don doesn't break under the pressure of having to, like, appease 10,000 people.
Yeah, I mean, look,
Which, I mean, we've made 3 big videos on this channel now, so you're going to see another spike in growth on your channel once these release.
You know, but
it's going to be while you're traveling.
Well, yeah, it's going to be while I'm traveling, and we're doing videos from the road right now, and, like, you know, I'm not on the forums as much as I should be because I'm, like, out in the real world doing this stuff. But, you know, when the first spike in traffic happened, I was like, you know, I was thankful. I was like, you know, I thought that this would take way longer to do because we were growing, but we're growing tiny. And it's like, if you're a YouTube channel with under 1,000 subs, it's like that first 1,000 is that's the roughest. That's the grind.
I mean, I had a YouTube channel for like 7 years before I had a popular video, you know, like just doing sketch comedy and random shit. So it's like, to me, when I see somebody get a couple hundred views, I'm, like, excited for them. Because, like, I've been there. You know, I've had videos that had no views for years. Like, so, and, like, I literally I decided that I was going to quit my job, like, when I like, considered it a success when I had 2,000 views on a video. Like, 2,000 views was enough that I was like, I'm all in on YouTube, and, like, I'm going to leave my job as soon as possible. And, like, I made, like, $10 on YouTube when I decided to, like, cut my hours. And I had made $100 when I quit, you know?
Yeah.
Because I saw it growing. And, like, I was making $600 a month for the first few months. And I still lived at home. And this is easy for me to do. You know, like, a lot of people don't have the privilege to do this. They don't live at home at this age. But, like, you know, it was a very lucky break for me to just launch the channel and just go for it, you know? I don't remember why I'm talking about that. I keep talking about myself, and it's supposed to be an interview with you.
Well, no, but the thing that's been really interesting about talking to you is it's like, you know, I'm trying to make, you know, I'm basically trying to take, like, what I wanted to do when I was in the straight magazine writing world of, like, I want to be in print. Like, it's my goal to be in print. I think it's a beautiful and durable way to transmit literary information. And I want to do that in a way that makes sense for the internet, because you can't just pretend that the internet doesn't exist if you want to make any kind of artistic work. And
and scarce work, it doesn't proliferate once it's gone. Once you've done that magazine print run, there is no more fucking magazines to spread around, you know?
Well, there has to be a transmittable form. Like, basically, a lot of the things that magazines used to do traditionally, websites can do now. Yeah. And even more of the things that magazines used to do traditionally, you can do on YouTube. To get my YouTube channel, for the most part, like, I do unscripted rants or rants that come out of an outline, but a lot of the a lot of the videos are just me reading little essays that I write in a notebook.
Right.
And it's like the idea that I can, you know, and so, you know, I don't really think of myself as, like, a YouTuber. It's like I'm a writer and an editor who gets on YouTube and does a thing.
It's important that you introduce all your videos by saying, like, I'm Don Jolly, a writer who's been published in this and that magazine, because it really communicates this air of, like, you know...
Yeah.
Not so much that it's just an air of legitimacy. It does lend some of that, but it's more of like...
Well, it's kind of a joke, too, because, like, a lot of times I'll drop, like, my weird publications before my, like, official ones, you know? Like, if I want to impress you, that's what I'm like, I was in the Los Angeles Review of Books, which, like, you know, nobody
Well, see, I've never
cares.
Heard of that, but Penthouse is the one that caught my attention.
Oh, yeah. Well, Penthouse was the most fun. But, you know, like, I published in Knights of the Dinner Table magazine, or... G-Fan magazine, or Planetary Stories, which is in its own right like...
How old were you when you were published in G-Fan? Like, how long ago was that?
I mean, I first appeared in the pages of G-Fan when I was like 10 years old.
Right. That's because I figured you might have a story like that.
Yeah, no, but this wasn't something that I published. Like, they published a picture of me. But you know, because my mom had painted one wall in my bedroom with a Godzilla mural.
Oh, awesome.
It was really cool. Yeah.
That's fucking sick.
But, like, I guess I got my first paid publication was, I suppose I was like 25 maybe. And it was a really small kill fee. It was like, I got $100. I sold this, like, you know, kind of Cthulhu style, you know, horror story about suburbia to Kaleidotrope magazine, which is a little weird fiction magazine. And, you know, that was, I got that publication, and it was a couple of years, like, it was after I moved to New York to go to graduate school that I started to, like, get published regularly. And then I had this in the summer of 2013, basically, like, I just figured out how to, like, get my stuff, you know, how to talk to editors, and like I started like pitching a lot of work and like selling a lot of work, and you know, you learn a lot of things about the writing industry. It's like, look, no writer, especially like freelance, you know, there are people that are getting decent payouts and people that are getting money to do research and like the sort of necessary work that you have to do if you want to do a complicated work of reportage or whatever, but like at the lower end of it, and especially for people that are like trying to break in, you're getting paid, you know, even for like a pretty big, you know, site, you're getting paid maybe, you know, $300 to $500 per story. And some of these can be very lengthy stories. You know, the LARB, which is like, you know, in some ways that was the magazine publication that got me the most attention, where people were like, oh, I need to take this guy seriously. Yeah. They didn't pay me at all. Like, you know, and it's
just like they were just like, oh, the prestige of being in
well,
payment or what?
Well, it's I don't know exactly how they would justify it, but like, yeah, they'll say like, you know, and they tell you that you can't eat prestige, but like the rough truth of it is that you actually can. Like
you bring it up enough times, makes you sound legit. Somebody might take interest and read it, you know. Yeah, no, it is like prestige is valuable. It's just not as valuable as being able to pay your writers. Right. Which is like, that's the whole goal here with Encyclopedia.Zone and the print publications that we want to do. Is we want to find a way to make print literature work in the 21st century, and not just work in the sense of like we do a Kickstarter every year to make you know, one magazine. Like I want to try and I don't know exactly how it's going to happen, but we want to try and build like a stable little press that will be able to handle the massive volume of quality shit that is coming out of the internet, and that will be able to pay people, you know, for their work. What are you doing your printing through?
We're talking to a printer in New York, and we don't have a totally settled price and paper stock and everything yet. But yeah, I mean, basically, like when I was with Dagger, you know, the publisher just like got in touch with a company in China and got everything printed up in bulk, and then, you know, you have to take care of the shipping costs. That's a big thing. But you know, it's not that hard, and it is not actually that expensive. It's within, like, if you have a couple of grand, it's within your budget to just get a little, like, 32-page, 64-page magazine, like a little booklet printed. Like, you can physically print it very cheaply. What you do with it after that is more difficult, because it's like, then you got to deal with, like, how do I distribute it? How do I get audience? How do I, how can I take these inert magazines and put them in front of people that would be interested in seeing them? Yeah. And I think the answer to that question is on the internet. And it's like, you can show off, you could use the YouTube the way that I'm using it to get people, like, hipped into sort of the ideas that I'm putting out there. And then also, to direct them to the Encyclopedia.Zone, where we've got a bunch of other people working. And, that's basically a way to get audience. Like, we give away a lot of content for free at Encyclopedia.Zone. And that's just because, like, if we're not making any money, like, it's very easy to commit to pay everybody fairly, because everybody's getting paid the same thing, which is was zero.
So I've been asking you lots of questions that we've sort of gone into a lot of detail about your history as a writer, your ideals as a writer, and, like, your community that you're building and things like that. But, like, I just want to contrast sort of the high-mindedness of the discussion that we have with, like, your actual living situation over the last few years. Yeah. And just kind of paint the portrait of what an artist of, like, I consider you to be a great writer. Yeah, I would put you amidst, like, my favorite internet writers. The likes of my own friends, some of them, like Endless Jess, Dick Masterson. I think you have a comparable literacy to them. You're all people who've read a lot of fucking shit and, like, make great references to points like Oscar Wilde, or to, like, more classical voices that have strong aphoristic tight writing, which I'm a big fan of. And I try to do that. Like, I make all kinds of content, but, like, my best writing, in my opinion, is stuff that is in the voice of something like you would do, Right. So, like, for me to think about the fact that, like, my favorite artists are guys who live in a warehouse with no bathroom for a considerable amount of time, it makes me very fucking sad. And it's why I'm always trying to help you guys out, because I know you're not, like, dying for cash necessarily in that way at the moment. But, no. Like, what the hell happened to make you live in a fucking warehouse with no bathroom?
Okay, so like I said, I was working in the straight magazine world, and I had this job. I was writing for the Revealer, and my editor there, Kaylee Handelman, by the way, was a excellent editor. But I was in a lot of student debt. I was seeing the kill fees that I was getting.
Real quick, to ask, like, when you went to college in Austin, right?
I started in Austin, yeah. I mean, I actually I went to the University of Texas at San Antonio first, and then I was out of college for a few years because I was doing I did webcomics, I did video work. Like, I've always wanted to do I've always wanted to be a writer, which seemed very remote from Austin, Texas, because it was like I didn't know how to get in touch with editors. Every once in a while I'd send a pitch, but, like, nobody had told me how to pitch. Yeah. There seemed to be no way into it. So, like, I did some creative work, and then went back to college in 2009, and that's when I got into the religious studies thing. And I went to NYU in 2012 to get the master's. So I basically had, after, when I was in college, I was like, I'm just going to be an academic. Like, this is going to be the perfect life for me, because I'm going to get to read all the time, and I'm going to get to write, and I'm going to get published. And it's like I get to do all the things that I want to do.
A lot of my friends started out that way, and then they realized they did not want to be trapped in the college infrastructure for the rest of their lives.
Well, I started going to conferences, and I've talked about this on microphone before, but I think it's a good story. I started going to, like, the American Academy of Religion and the Society for Biblical Literature conference, the ARSBL, and they would have these, like, gatherings. These are basically like anime conventions for graduate students and professors, and they would have these, like, essentially panels where they would take the chairs out and arrange them in a circle, like a support group meeting, and all the graduate students and PhD candidates would talk about, like, what awaited them after graduation. And like, you know, you'd be hearing from postdocs and like, you know, adjunct professors that are just like, you know, I'm sitting there as a guy with a master's degree, like these are the people who are going to be me in 3 years. And they're like, I don't make enough money to live. I'm working at McDonald's and I'm teaching a full course load of introductory religion courses. Like I'm basically, you know, I'm a PhD candidate, quote unquote, but I'm basically just like labor. I'm labor.
Fucking walking meat.
I'm walking meat. I'm labor that they don't have to like compensate fairly because technically they're like giving me a degree. And then you talk to the adjunct professors, like the junior professors who don't have tenure yet, and they're like, oh yeah, well at my university, they're giving us the chance to unionize as adjunct professors. Like they would accept our terms and like we would be able to have a union and get health insurance, but only if we help them demolish the tenure system and like. So that they could get the tenured professors out of the way so that they could have a more controllable population of, you know, like the union representation would be like the best of two bad options for the administration that runs the school. And then, you know, the only like there was this woman leading this particular, you know, gathering that I was at this convention who was a labor organizer for graduate students. She was like, you know, she handed out her business card at the end of the whole thing. So it's like, it just was this whole line of people being like, I'm fucked, I'm fucked, I'm fucked, I'm fucked. And then it gets to the end and this woman stands up and she's like, well, if you would like to add an additional layer of bureaucracy to how fucked you are, here's my card and we can help you set up a grad student union. And I was like, this is a really bad situation. I started to realize it talking to everybody. It's like, I am in a ridiculous, like I have been tricked. Into assuming this debt.
Everybody who went to college has been tricked.
Yeah.
Even if you have success through it, you have been tricked still because you've spent way the fuck too much money and you could have done it another way.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is that it's the people who find success through it. It's like, this is what I found in graduate school. This is not exactly what I found in my undergrad because I had the fortune to go to a Catholic university where I was taught by Brothers of the Holy Cross. Yeah. And like, they take shit seriously. They take literature seriously. You want to learn John Milton? Learn it from a fucking monk. But when I went to NYU, it's like I got to study with some very talented, very intelligent professors. But the main thing that I learned going to graduate school was like how to interact with the upper middle class of America. Like it's basically like you learn etiquette. Right. Like this is why people go to college. This is why they pay that ridiculous amount of money. This is why colleges can like charge you this ridiculous amount of money is because the reason you're there is to, you know, make connections. And that, you know, people make that sound really mercenary, but mostly it's like you need to learn the etiquette that will allow you to make yourself comprehensible to the people who actually have the money to subsidize your life. Yeah. And, you know, that's the skill set that's being taught. And like, you know, I don't have a big interest in making making myself acceptable to people that I find disgusting.
Right, exactly. That's pretty much why I'm in the... I mean, I felt that way about school in high school, and I wanted out. So, like, I didn't bother... I was in college for 2 years, dropped out, didn't, like... I was like, fuck this shit, you know? And, like, I even felt that way about all the mainstream publications because I was like, the writing I'm doing is just too weird. Like, if it weren't for YouTube, I would not have... I was trying to, like, become a fiction author or something. I mean, I was a NEET for, like, a year and a half before I started this channel, you know? I was just sitting around, like, I don't know what the fuck to do until I found out you could make money on YouTube. And I was like, oh, well, there's enough weird fucking people on YouTube that they will support me, you know? And, like, and you're kind of now... I think that's why I like it works for you to have a YouTube as well, because like it's the same logic applies. There's enough fucking weird people on YouTube for you to have a successful YouTube channel, at least to dive like successful enough to build the community you need to fund the magazine. You know?
Yeah, I mean that's the way I'm looking at it. Is like I'm not going in it to be like an unlimited YouTube kind of guy. It's like I want to be able to do the work that I want to do, and I want to be able to publish people's work that I respect. And, like, in the literary zine world, like, 1,700 subscribers or, like, 1,700 potential buyers is a lot.
Right.
You know, in YouTube, 1,700 subs is not... It ain't no big sticks. But like if your goal is to sell, you know, like my goal for the next few years is going to be to sell about 1,000 newsprint magazines.
Right.
Hopefully a newsprint magazine and a newsprint collection of comics. But that's my goal. And like everything that I'm doing is feeding towards that. So like I'm really happy having like I like being described as like an underground kind of YouTube guy. But as far as I'm like from the perspective of like being an independent like literary press, like we're off to a really great start. And you know, that's one of the things that I think is really important that you get across in your videos, because you're just so technical about like how YouTube works and how like you know, functionally like how you produce the amount of content that you need, because like consistency is a huge part of it. Like I even see it, you know, this week with, you know, my views are down because I didn't update last week, and now I'm like, you know, if you get that 2 video a week or whatever your rhythm is, you know.
And I consider myself something of like a talent manager in a way, in that like when I look at what somebody's doing on the internet, I can pretty easily tell them like, here's what you need to do.
Right.
Just because like I have friends who they can't work fast. Like my friend Best Guy Ever, he is a perfectionist, and like his version of doing like a low effort content is higher than my version of doing a high effort content, you know? So like he has a weekly show he does that's like mostly an unscripted vlog with editing over top of it, talking about just like whatever he happens to talk about that week. But like just the amount he goes into it prevents him from being able to do more than one of those in a week. There's no way he could do that while also putting out like bigger content on the side that like has more of his heart and soul put into it, you know? And like for me, my YouTube channel is not just funding my life, it's funding my ability to have a music career that makes no fucking money. You know, it's funding my ability to make like a huge variety of video styles. Like my big videos fund my small videos, you know, and I make tons of weird artistic shit posty content. You watched my Sword Art
Online is good.
Yeah. Like that's possible because people are paying for the other videos.
Right.
But like when they see it, they also like it. They see this thing they didn't expect, and a lot of them go like, I'm really glad I'm paying you so that you can also do this. You know, like they don't just want the stuff they're paying for. They want the weird shit posts. But it's like, you know, having some success on YouTube gives you the leverage to like, as long as you can do it fast enough. And like, you have to find it's not about creating content based on what level of effort you want to put into your content. It's what is the maximum I can do in a week, you know, like, and still have time to do everything else I want to do. So it's like, if the maximum you can do in a week is an unscripted vlog, then the question is, am I interesting enough? Like, can I speak well enough to do an unscripted vlog every week and have something to talk about? And some of us, I described me and my friend Best Guy Ever. He's planning to come over in a couple weeks. We're gonna do basically the same thing you and I are doing right now. Just
That's awesome.
Record a bunch of shit, right?
Yeah.
But he was like really antsy about trying to figure out what are we going to talk about, like what's the show gonna be. And I was like, dude, you and I are niggas who talk about a lot of shit. Like we're just niggas who talk about shit. That's what we do. We get together and we talk about shit. You are a nigga that talks about shit. Yeah. You sit around, when you hang out with people, you just talk about shit. Yeah. So like,
well, except you got one thing wrong.
Yeah.
I'm a Caucasian man.
That's true.
That's true.
You are a white man. People
I am a
will
white
know
man.
if they see the other videos. But,
well, no, I try to keep my race a little bit obscure. You know, that's why I use a holographic projection. It just looks like shitty webcam video.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
But no, you know, when I detect that in somebody, where it's like, this guy could talk about fucking anything, and like me and my buddy Jesse are very much, that is like how we've run our careers, is that even if we were completely creatively fucking bankrupt and dead, and we were bored and we hated life and we're depressed, and all I'm doing is drinking alcohol and streaming in my room, I can always make videos because I can always find something to talk about. Right. I will literally sometimes just, like, if I'm really desperate, look over at my shelf like of DVDs and just pick a DVD that I think I could talk about and just rant about it, you know, and just to have content to come out. So it's like, if you are somebody like that, you can do it. And you're somebody like that, which is why I'm like, the YouTube channel is going to work for you. It's going to power your empire because you are that guy who can talk about shit. And as long as you can set aside like an hour a week to record something and upload it, you can keep it going,
No, I love doing the YouTube channel, and I love the directness of it, especially like being able to write, like wake up in the morning. This was my routine for a while. This is why I always have a coffee cup in the videos. Is wake up in the morning, write, for a couple hours, just fill some pages, and then usually I wouldn't read it back, but I would like take whatever I had sort of worked over with myself in there and turn it into a video. Like that's how I did the D23 one. And I like being able to just like kind of like slide through, like by noon, I've got something up that people are responding to, which is like such an accelerated time scale for a piece of writing, like an idea.
A big part of why I post so frequently is that like just the dopamine that I get from reading comments. Like I've always been a comment oriented guy, and it seems like you are too. You read like everything. And, I'm somebody who reads for at least the first couple days when there's like a lot of stuff coming in. I pretty much read the comments on any video until they slow down. And then I, just kind of put it out to pasture. But like, I'm like excited to read all the comments. And so like I get that too. Like when you post frequently, it's like, ooh, I get like reactions all the time. Like people are always telling me what they think about my work,
Well, and you get like, people will see your video and like you'll get weird opportunities. People reach out to you, like even on like and the thing that I'm saying, like, because I don't want to present myself as like some kind of like YouTube mastermind. I have a very small channel, but what I'm saying is depending on what you want to do, like this is a very helpful thing even at the lower end of the pool, and it's something that is like within the grasp of a lot of people.
Fucking crazy on YouTube, and like small channels tend to clean together because they see it as like, oh, we're both around the same size, like we can help each other out, and it works a lot of the time because they form groups and they make podcasts and they form communities around themselves and stuff like that. I see a lot of it amongst like, the smaller anime channels. They all are like interconnected deeply.
But like think about this, like whatever you want to do with your life, whatever your project is, like whether you're working a job or you're in college or you're a NEET, if you've got some kind of ambition to like make something or be published or whatever, like you have all of these tools. Like YouTube is a tool, like the way I'm using it. It's a promotional tool that is already installed on everybody's television in America that you can access anywhere in the world, except...
and it's very easy to manipulate if you know what you're doing.
Exactly.
And people like me are writing guides to it all the fucking time. So, like, if you have the wherewithal to look... My friend Tom... He cracks up because I kind of blew his mind by asking him something like or being so stupid in comparison to him, I guess. But he was telling me about how like when he has a problem like with technology or something, he assumes that there must be a solution and looks it up. And my stance is if I don't know there's a solution, I don't assume there is one. I just assume I can't do anything and that my thing is broken, And he seemed to have like a breakthrough moment of realizing that like this is such a fundamental trait you need to have is like if you you should assume that somebody's figured it out and try to find out what they did, like, and that's something that I've done. Like when I see that somebody is successful or has done something I wish I had done, my immediate response is to break down how they did it and try to duplicate it. And so like a lot of my videos, I mean, I did that one Sword Online video that's in your style because I saw what you were doing and I thought it was effective and I immediately wanted to understand why it was effective, so I duplicated it.
Yeah.
And now I can incorporate elements of it in whenever I want, and it's just like one more layer of what I'm capable of doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would encourage people to do that as much as possible.
Yeah, I would also encourage people. Because like I would also encourage people to like participate in the basic creative action of the internet, which is like if something is posted, it is raw material for more posts.
Yeah.
And this is the thing is like we have this massive collaborative information network at our fingertips, and it's easy, especially if you like pay attention to the way the mainstream media portrays it, to focus on the negative of that. But like there is a tremendous amount of advantage and power that comes from having this technology, and I think that we should use it in a good way to help one another make things that improve the status of the world. Not to get too pretentious, but just like, a good magazine is worth a lot, in my opinion. A good piece of music or a good piece of analysis, something that makes you think about the world differently, like good art, basically. And we've all got access to, technology and expertise and one another to, make these things and to push, put them out into the world and to see what becomes of them, to see what things get made in their stead. It's not, writing for years, I was obsessed with the idea of like being a published writer, published author. And the fact that I wasn't one, like, galled me. I was like, this is terrible. Like, I felt so inadequate. And I'll meet people who are still in that headspace of
I've been there before.
Yeah, like I am not worthy. I'm not worth it. Like, all these people that I'm reading, somebody looked at them and decided that they were worth it. And nobody's done that for me. And, like, the thing is, even after you get published, you still have that craving for validation. It's just that it like takes on different forms. You can't ever really put it to bed, and nobody will ever take you by the hand and look you in the eyes and tell you in a way that you will believe that you are, legitimate. You're 100% legitimate creator. But all of that is beside the point, because like you have the tools to not just make, like, you've had the tools for a long time. The human species had the tools for a long time to just like physically like write whatever they want. But like you could write the best piece of best essay in the English language, but if it's in pencil in a notebook and you don't know anybody, then that's as far as it's going to go. You have the tools available to you right now. You're probably listening to these words over them. You have the ability to distribute your work to a global audience without any intermediaries between you and them. It's that fundamental change in access to information is so powerful. And
what else is if you're willing to live like a little bit of a vagabond, it's not that expensive to travel cheaply.
Yeah.
Like if you at least have a car, especially, or a friend with a car, and like you guys want to move around the country, you can go to people's houses. You know? Like it's like why you're able to come here. It's like, there's a certain freedom in the lifestyle of like living cheap and fast and all over the place and working with people and like collaborating, It's an exciting life in a lot of weird ways that you don't expect as a fucking writer who's a hermit, Yeah. But you feel like, if you're influenced by guys like Hunter Thompson, then it's like we feel like complete fucking pussies compared to what he actually was doing. But like, it's still cool to drive around the country and meet.
Dude, I mean, like the thing about like I love Hunter.
Yeah.
But the hyper masculine thing, it is a little bit of a character. It's a little bit Dick Masterson.
Right.
And the main thing that he did, like he lived in Woody Creek, Colorado, and he fucking, he shit posted at people. Like traveling around and being on assignment and all the stuff that he writes about with such like open disdain in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas and Fear and Loathing in the Campaign Trail 72, which are like the icons of acceptable journalism. Like you don't even like it's a fucking joke now. It's like I said this when I decided to move into the warehouse. Like I realized that like the life that I had prepared myself for was not going to work out. It didn't really exist, and I'd been tricked into this position where I was basically a debt slave who was going to have to, I would say I was going to have to work some advertising job or something that I would hate for the rest of my life, but my religious studies degree did not actually qualify me for any job. So like I was just in debt forever with no like way out. So I was like, you know what? Fuck this society. And I dropped off of the grid and started living in the warehouse because it was basically like, number one, I didn't have the money to do anything else. And number two, I was prepared to accept that level of survival.
Yeah.
Like, I was willing to say, like, okay, I'd like to have a roof and a bathroom and a bed, but I have a roof. That's going to be good enough. I'll sleep on this audio foam insulation next to a Moroccan man named Abdel, who is in New York temporarily to work seasonally in the deli so he can send money home.
Jesus
and it's,
Christ.
well, but it was great.
Yeah.
We watched soccer.
You had no bathroom, didn't you?
Yeah, well,
Where did you go?
You piss in bottles.
Okay. What do you shit?
7-Eleven down the street.
Okay. Because I've done the I've lived the Walmart shit life a few times.
Yeah, the Walmart shit life.
Yeah, when we first moved into this house, I had forgotten to turn on the water in time. So for a few days, it was the Walmart and Target shit life. Because I love to shit in public bathrooms and rate them.
Yeah.
I have like an extensive rating scale.
Oh, good.
Of public bathrooms.
Do you watch Toilet Explorer on YouTube?
Is that real?
Yeah.
I always wanted to do something like that, but like I'm afraid of filming in bathrooms.
No, it's a. I mean, I don't know. I never see anyone in his videos. He's got this he's got this serene discipline. It's nothing but clean toilet fixtures, and it's like his focus is not on bodily waste. It's just on beautiful porcelain toilets in good repair. And he'll be like, "Wow, a 1912 Thompson."
So it's not like just like ranking every random public bathroom he's in.
No,
because that's what I would do, but I don't want to film in the bathroom.
Yeah.
But like I have rankings for every bathroom I go to. I'm like, oh, this is like a this is like a 5 out of 10 bathroom to shit in. You know?
I did, so like, do you rate it? It's like a 5. It's a star system.
It's out of 10, like a
out
proper
10.
rating system. Like if you want to know the worst toilets, it would be in the Philippines where they do not have rims on the toilets. You have to just sit directly on the middle. And one of the ones I used in like a government building had like a super small door. Like a dead fly on the ground, no toilet paper. I had to ask somebody to give me like some tissues, like in a package. Like I had to get out of the bathroom, look for somebody to offer me something, and use like a packet of tissues. It was disgusting. Worst bathroom experience. The best bathroom experience, Hilton hotels have awesome bathrooms where you only have to use one sheet of paper towel to dry your hands. One sheet. It's so absorbent.
Okay, I'm gonna participate in this because I think it's gonna be an interesting contribution.
Yeah.
Worst bathroom experience: parking lot of apartment complex in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. No toilet paper, of course, because it was a parking lot and not an actual bathroom. However, it did have some privacy-granting abandoned cars, which I appreciated greatly. And it was within walking distance of a bodega where I could buy toilet paper, which seems very inconvenient, but is actually much more convenient than some other locations that it might have come down to. Like, look,
I mean, New York's not an easy place to take a shit at.
New York is a terrible place to take a shit. And that's one of the main ways that they like drive you to fucking spend money at places is like you got to pay money to get the bathroom code.
Oh, it's fucking dude.
Oh,
like,
it's terrible.
It's bad like that in a lot of places in the Philippines and in Boston, where it's like if you want to take a shit somewhere, you're going to have to pay money. And I'm somebody who has to piss routinely, like every hour on the hour.
Yeah.
The time. So it's a fucking nightmare walking around the city, like eating and drinking, and then like constantly have to like slot quarters into a fucking weird, like futuristic portal potty essentially that exists in the middle of the city, and eats your coins and then opens like a starship. Have you seen those things?
No.
They're fucking strange. They're all over Boston.
Yeah, no. In New York, the most dystopian urban feature is the camera kiosk that plays full motion video advertisements, and then occasionally will just tell you how lucky you are to live in New York, which is pretty standard messaging for the city, because obviously there's a lot of very nice shit written about it, but seeing it on the George Orwell cyberpunk moving advertisement kiosk, which every single one of them is literally outfitted with a brace of cameras that keep like the street in view at all times so that your actions can be called back and referred to by the NYPD. Like, having that device say to you, like, there's no place on earth like New York. And I'm like, geez, I hope not.
So, how long were you living in this warehouse for?
About a year off and on. Like, I would go in and I would come back.
Warehouse.
I mean, like, look, I've lived in a lot of weird situations over the years because it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's more important to me to be independent than it is for me to be comfortable.
Right.
But lest this be something where people like romanticize it, like big part of the reason I was doing this is because I was so fucking depressed. I didn't think it was worth maintaining even the semblance of a normal life.
And it's really hardcore when you have something like the student debt over your head. And like, I am insanely lucky in this regard because like I was so anti-college from the beginning.
Yeah.
That like, and I have like a sick autistic fascination with people who dropped out of high school or dropped out of college to become creators. And like, it was one of those things where just like through sheer ego, I had no doubt I could do that.
Yeah.
But like most people are not like, if you go to college for 6 years, it's because you have like a kind of serious ambition about where you intend to plant yourself in the future. And to have that completely bottom out like on such an ideological and fundamental level, such as that even if I were going to try to convince myself to do this just for the money's not even there anymore.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, this degree shouldn't even fucking exist if there's like if I can't even get a job in the field it's trained me for, you know, like what the fuck is the point? And when you hit that moment of realization, it's like even if I want to launch like an artistic career and be a person, like I have $50,000 of college debt behind me. No, and that's a lot of my friends, you know. It's in similar financial situations to you, you know.
Yeah, having the debt load, it's like I was very pissed off to be under it. But it's also like, basically you're being coerced into participating in a society that you don't want to participate in. It's like, and people will tell you like, well, you've got to just like suck it up and take responsibility and pay down that loan. Like that's all the good government bullshit that they'll feed you. But like, they are keeping people, they're keeping people in a manipulative system that, kind of it prevents them from talking out of turn. Like, it
kills your fucking soul if every thought you have is about the way things really are and you can't talk about it.
Yeah.
Like, even if it's something as simple as like representing your unique perspective just so that like you can be heard. It's just like if you have to write only things that will like that have an established audience, it's like I am just a machine then. Like there is no purpose to me being in this equation. Like, this is why, like, Yang talks about how, like, they literally are going to automate away a lot of journalist jobs that can easily be automated. There's already bots writing websites, So, like, it's like, when you find yourself in a position where that's the only way to make money in the industry, it's obvious that the industry is completely fucked and broken. And that, like, going to college and training yourself for a fucked and broken industry is a bad investment, And, like, nobody warns you that that's the way it's going to be. You have to just figure it out by entering it, And, like, I think I was lucky that, like, a lot of the people I was influenced by had been fucked over by the industry and were very against it, Lots of, like, I appreciate a lot of musicians who, like, left their labels and stuff like that over disputes. So I kind of felt like, well, I don't want to fucking sign up with a label. I don't want to fucking sign up with a publisher and then, like, end in a dispute, If I can become famous by myself, I'm going to do that.
I mean, yeah, that's something that I realized because, like, I've worked with a lot of different people. I've had good experiences and bad experiences with publishers and editors over the years. But, like, unless you own something, like for example, I have Gorefest, which is my role-playing game. And, like, I at several points in my life, I've worked with people who are like, I want to be more involved in Gorefest. I want to help you get Gorefest out. Like, I'm going to offer you the X, Y, and Z and whatever.
How long ago did you invent Gorefest?
Oh my God. Like, you don't, okay. So Gorefest, I first came up with it. I wrote the first edition of the game, like on the back of a piece of notebook paper in the 7th fucking grade. Like,
oh my God.
1999. It's 20 years old this year.
Shit.
Yeah, and it went through, like, this has been my thing. Like, I recognize that it's like not everybody is into role playing games, but like kind of my big thesis that I spent 20 years working on and iterating is this like action movie role-playing game where everybody plays a psychopath.
I'm glad we remembered to bring this up just because, there's a subset of people listening to this who, even if they weren't interested in anything we've talked about in the last 2 hours, could potentially be interested in Gorefest as an individual thing, which you did a live show of.
Yeah, we did a live show at the Chain Theater with the Usual Rejects, which is a theater company in Manhattan. And, we sold it out. And it was a really successful show, and we're hoping we can do some more. I think things are looking good for us to do some more, but we don't have an exact date yet because I'm like relocating across the country to do internet.
So what is the nature of Gorefest?
Gorefest is a game where it's a role-playing game like Dungeons and Dragons, except it runs much quicker so that you can play a complete game in about 2 to 3 hours as opposed to like 4 to 6. And it's set in the world of 1970s and 80s action movies with the twist that every character in the game has a number of serious, crippling physical and psychological deformities that make it difficult for you to, be the standard kind of RPG good guy character. Like, basically everybody makes up a bunch of, like, unpredictable psychopaths, and then you all compete to kill one another or complete some kind of objective, and it's really fun and really funny.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you think you're going to be doing anything like live with that in Austin?
Or
is it more like, hey, do you want to pitch yourself like, hey, moving into Austin, who wants to come play Gorefest on this podcast? Because I know I have a lot of fans in Austin. So
I mean, I am going to definitely be running some games in Austin, but I haven't talked to any venues or anything yet. Like I'm open to it. But at least so far, the only place where the most likely place where there's going to be for sure live Gorefest in the future is still New York.
Okay. So it will happen again in New York.
I mean, this is
like. Do you see yourself like going back and forth to New York, like with any kind of?
I mean, yeah. I as much as it's like I can't afford it, and like living in a warehouse is not a romantic good time. It is educational, though. Like it's useful to have. Bad experiences if they inform you of something about the world you don't know.
Yeah, I credit like a certain level of my ability to like. You can look at it like I grew up kind of privileged in a way because like towards when I was like reaching adulthood, my dad had a lot of money, but like there were times where we were dead ass broke, and like it's important to have had that, I think, or to relate to it or know people who've been in that situation, just so you can like. Even understand what a different mentality your whole fucking life is,
Yeah, I mean, like, just living in the warehouse had its negative points for sure. Like, freezing your ass off walking to 7-Eleven at 4 a.m. to take a shit is not fun.
No.
But, I never would have lived with Abdel if it hadn't been for the studio. And, like, I learned a lot from that fucking experience about, like, how the rest of the world views America, what the rest of the world's like. He's much more, like, more traveled than I was. And I grew up in Texas. This was my first like close friend who was Moroccan Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
When you throw
it's interesting too, because like around here is a huge Moroccan community, and they run all the pizza places.
Oh yeah,
yeah, it's like Moroccan like mob runs all the pizza places here.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I would assume that they would have efficient pizza preparation. They'd probably be pretty good.
Yeah, no, they're great.
But yeah, like you, as much as it's like talk about living in a warehouse or whatever. It's like have I had some hard times in New York? Yeah. Have I had some rough times in New York? Yeah. Have I been exhausted and beaten down by New York? Of course. But I love it. It's a beautiful place. It's full of very beautiful people. For an artist. Like, there's this attitude in New York that I think we basically need to adopt on the internet in general. And I think you already have because you're ahead of the curve, which is like, when I was in Austin and I was doing like art show stuff, there was a lot of like catty bullshit between different art factions.
Yeah.
And the reason for that, in my opinion, is because the smaller the anthill is, the more people are going to fight to be on the top of it, because like really they're fighting for nothing other than just the title, which means that they have nothing else at stake. So like, you're fighting over something that's basically meaningless, but it feels like that somehow grants you legitimacy as a creator. Right. Whereas in New York there is all this money, And there is all this opportunity, like much more so than in any other place in the country, in my opinion, to like be a visual artist or be an actor or.
But that's besides the internet.
Well, besides the internet,
yeah.
but what
I'll tell you that like part of the reason that I appeared in one of your videos that's gonna come out.
Yeah.
Where I kind of criticize the city. And talk about like the benefits of like moving to the South and living in smaller cities like Virginia Beach that are just like pleasant.
Yeah.
Because like if you can like use the opportunities of the internet and you can live wherever the fuck you want and still get to like have all those meaningful social connections with people, like as long as you can't organize meeting up with a large group of artists in Virginia Beach that easily.
Yeah.
Like that's not Gorefest Live could not happen here. It could happen in New York City. And so I understand why you would love a place like that, But, like, if you're not doing that, if you're somebody who's, like, or you're flying out to things occasionally, it's like there are, like, I just think there's a lot of health benefits to, like, move your career onto the internet and then move yourself into, like, a more pleasant place.
No, I mean, that is literally what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But, like, what I'm saying is there's this attitude in New York. Like, even though there is all this money and stuff at stake, you would expect people to be even more bloodthirsty and cutthroat. I'm talking about the artists here. But that's not the case.
No.
Artists in New York have the attitude that artists on the internet like you have, where you're like, you see somebody out there doing interesting work, your first thought is like, oh, what can we do together? What can we do together? How can we like both make our things better? Like the way you were saying, like I was very complimented when you were like, I'm doing this Don Jolly style video,
right?
Because I didn't realize I had a style. Like I was still feeling like I had just left like Dagger and had just started Encyclopedia.Zone. As far as I was concerned, it was like I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just throwing these things up. Like I don't know. Like and then it was like it gave you something valuable, what I was producing, even though I wasn't conscious of what I was doing. And it's like, it feeds back in on itself and it becomes this like very positive, generative thing. Like, look at how much shit we made over the last 3 days, right?
Yeah.
Like
2 days.
2 days. And like, that's the way that in my experience, the people that I met in New York, like Matt Rhoda and Billy Norby did the cover of Dagger, and Tim McKiernan, who was in the live action Gorefest game, and Aaron Watts, who was my game master for 7 years out there, and Chris West, who is like instrumental in the whole Encyclopedia.Zone thing. Like all the people that I met in New York in that sector of the arts, it's like they have that attitude of like, look, there's all this opportunity out there for us, but we got to go get it.
Yeah.
Let's help each other out. Let's throw in.
I mean,
let's
New York traditionally should be thought of as like the home of the American dream and like the ambitious artists. Like, even if the nature of it has shifted and it's weird now, like if you still have like 10 artists in a room together, something interesting is probably going to happen.
Yeah. Well, and you don't even have to be in the room together anymore, which is the thing. It's like that attitude that people have in New York is like the attitude that I take to like my work on the Zone and to the internet in general. And it's like, it's the attitude that like I see you embodying. And like, I'm just seeing this wave right now on the internet. Cause it's like, I just started a Twitter account, right? Like I hadn't had one for forever. I didn't even, when I was in the warehouse and stuff, I didn't even have a cell phone. I didn't have a portable phone for about 3 years. And, now I'm like, I'm more connected up. I'm like doing more of the social media thing. And I had this expectation that it would be like a really negative experience. And, but that hasn't.
People are so positive about you, it's ridiculous. Like, I read a lot of YouTube comments. You don't get negative comments, really. Like, you get, like, glowing praise in your whole online presence. And I think it's just because you're almost, in some sense, uncontroversial. And that, like, you're talking about things that are just bigger than the conflicts going on and sort of drawing attention to, like, the insensibleness of, like, the way that things are being presented in a way that's hard to argue with. It's hard to like watch one of your videos and not think that you were presenting things accurately.
Well, and I try to like actually make it work. Like especially if I do something like I did this video, The Terror, which is about 9/11 and management consulting groups like McKinsey and Company, and like the it gets off into some pretty deep waters. And I try to go, to do as much full journalistic vetting as I can possibly do within the limits of making a YouTube video, which is to say, like, I'm usually using secondary sources, which is to say I'm using the work of other journalists, perhaps like other journalists who've been published like 10, 20, 30 years apart. So it's very unlikely that you will have read these facts in this arrangement.
Exactly.
But like,
and you also make lots of references and cultural touchstones, and just you've read a lot of shit. You can pull out a lot of like aphorisms for cultural references, and the ending of that video is like a quote from the Cyberpunk trailer.
Yeah.
But delivered in a way I had not seen the Cyberpunk trailer. So I just thought you made it up, and I was like, oh, that was fucking badass. I'm going to fucking say that from now on. And then I was like, oh, this is something everyone's saying already. But like you worked it in so artfully into this construction, Yeah,
wake the fuck up, samurai.
Yeah.
We got a city to burn. Yeah, I mean, the
But you said we have a world to burn.
Planet to burn, planet to burn. But that's a little heavy. But yeah, it's an opportunity to do exactly the kind of writing that I've always wanted to do, and that it's difficult to get. It's less difficult to get an editor behind it. Kaylee Handelman at The Revealer was very behind like a lot of my structural experiments and stuff that I did with her, and that's another thing that I'm gonna do like over the course of the next, like once I get down to Austin and I start getting set up to have like a lower rent life and get because like I don't have like a valid photo identification anymore, so like I need to get that renewed. Like I've been off the fucking grid.
Yeah. Well, do you want to talk about your like ID?
Oh yeah. Okay, so like I don't have a current form of identification for the longest time because I had a passport and I lost it. I tried to get it renewed, which because I didn't have any other valid form of photo identification, I had to like bring somebody in to like vouch for me and like write this whole application to the State Department. And so I sent them my birth certificate and the whole package. And then I got a letter from the State Department. This was about, it's like 2 years ago. And they said, well, your birth certificate's forged, so we're seizing it. And you can like appeal this decision by getting a new birth certificate, and sending it to us. And
How do you do that?
Well, okay, I have to go to the state of Texas and I have to ask to get a new birth certificate.
Probably be easier to do once you're down there.
Well, to get it in the time that the State Department asked me to get it would have cost me $250, which I did not have. So I just continued to be non-existent, which is like, you can actually live very easily without any kind of like trackable identity. It's not hard, and there's always somebody willing to hire an employee who does not have any protection under the law.
Right. Like
you will always be able to find somebody offering that job. It's just not like a sexy cyberpunk Shadowrun kind of job. It's like you're gonna have to mop up piss.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to mop up piss late at night. You're gonna be working 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. You're gonna be working that shift.
My buddy Tom had a job where he had to guard an abandoned building because like it couldn't be demolished for some kind of safety reason. But also, like, it couldn't be kept open without there being a guard because it had faulty, like, fire alarm systems. So he just babysat a building through the night every night, and that was his job. And it was, like, a weird... The guy who, like, had given him the job was paying him, like... I don't know if it was under the table, but in, like, a shady way. And, like, technically, like, he shouldn't have been able to work there because the building was, like, falling apart and was not up to code. And, like, it shouldn't be safe for him to be there. But it didn't matter because this guy like owned half the city who had hired him, And it's not like even a well-paying job or anything. It's just like, this is the kind of job that they want people like you with no ID to do. Right,
exactly. I mean, and it's actually like it's a necessity for some parts of the economy, which is like really gross. But once I get my ID thing settled, which thanks to like, the vicissitudes of Texas law, I should be able to get my shit renewed with the expired driver's license that I do have access to. I'm going to try and sell the columns that I wrote when I was at the Revealer magazine, which was this thing called the Last 20th Century Book Club, we're gonna try to sell it like as a book. So hopefully that'll work out too. But that's a little bit down the road.
Yeah.
Like right now, it's about getting the zone going. Hopefully, get some more people on there posting, and it's just been a pleasure and honor to talk with you and to do all the work that we've done over the last few days. Thank you very much.
Oh, no problem. It's been a lot of fun. And before we wrap up,
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about any recent things you've done? Because I know you were a part of all these Epstein Truth events around New York City recently and stuff like that. So how often do you just involve yourself in other people's random kind of shit that's going on in New York or I know you read a poem in front of Epstein's Manor or something.
Oh, I didn't. I ended up reading it in Union Square. I pussied out. Well, we ran out of time to get down there because I was moving boxes up until the day that I had to leave.
But you did go to the Hillary Rodham Clinton signing.
Yeah, I went to Hillary's book signing where the Epstein Truth people showed her pictures of Jeffrey Epstein and asked them to sign their books to Jeff.
Yeah, and they also asked her. Their main question was, where is the
where's Ghislaine Maxwell?
Right,
Ghislaine.
Yeah, and they were asking, because the book was it was the Strong Women, but what was it called?
The Book of Gutsy Women.
Gutsy Women, and so they were having hashtag Gutsy Ghislaine.
Yeah,
and they went up to her and asked her on Periscope. Live, I watched the Periscope as it happened.
Yeah.
Of them asking her why didn't you include Gutsy Ghislaine in the book? And they were just kind of she just said thank you, and they waved him off stage. Yeah. Did you end up saying anything to her? Did you meet her?
No,
again?
I actually did not have enough money to get in line.
No.
Because that's the thing is that was I don't want to name anybody involved in the thing if they don't want to be, so.
Yeah.
But the Epstein Truth people, they're a very dedicated group, and it takes a lot of guts and it takes a lot of fortitude to be able to stand to get through and do an operation like that where you're confronting Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
Because they had to sit in a 4-hour line, stand in a 4-hour line. They had to be
they were fucking really excited about it. And
yeah.
they memed it up all day on Twitter and there was a bunch of people protesting outside the place for other reasons.
Yeah.
Just people who don't like Hillary. So it wasn't even
Haitians.
I think that kind of energy to the event, obviously there was an expectation on the part of the people running this event that this had to happen.
Yeah.
And that's almost a security blanket in itself a little bit. That that they know people are going to be fucking with her, so they're not going to necessarily take you aside and murder you for doing something.
I mean, look, ain't nobody gonna get murdered until you get at least I'm not scared of the security state apparatus until I have 100,000 followers. Yeah. At which point I'm okay, well. Then maybe look to see how much I'm posting on Twitter, because if I'm gone for a day, maybe you're going to see that New York Times story where it's writer deeply depressed kills self.
I have 350,000 subscribers and we're talking about it.
Talking about Epstein. Okay. I mean, look, for real though, these are not coordinated fucking people, and the Epstein thing that happened is the biggest gift. If you want to change the narratives involved in world power right now, the mysterious death of Jeffrey Epstein, which is to say that he was obviously fucking murdered for some reason, by people that are powerful enough to get away with murder, just
and lie about it, and it not be presented as not obviously what it is by the mainstream media.
Yeah, it's this is one of the things that makes the whole impeachment thing feel so ridiculous to me, because it's if you still believe that we live in a society of laws, you're a fucking moron.
Right.
We live in an anarchistic, semi-collapsed industrial capitalism, and the forces that govern over us are basically competing criminal syndicates.
Yeah.
It's not Jeffrey Epstein is if you had any illusions about the essential morality of power, look, they're fucking kids and they're fucking killing each other, and they can do it right in front of your face, And there's nothing anybody could do. The New York Times is going to write a story talking about how depressed he was. Like, Jeffrey Epstein is a JFK kind of moment. It's a big moment in American mythology, as long as we don't allow it to die. And we talk about it and we propagate it and we make it into what I know it can be, which is like, you know, it's not like this is the one idea that's going to like unravel the system, man. But like for years, the only act of public immorality that is truly disqualifying, that can like destroy your credibility even as a powerful person, is sexual misconduct. And we just discovered, or we didn't, it's not that we just discovered, it's that now one of the, you know, like this very large media narrative that is widely accepted by large groups of people. Like I did that Gorefest game in New York. The theme was kill Jeffrey Epstein.
Right.
I was up there in a prison uniform playing Jeffrey Epstein with the fucking butterflies, like a Chinese butterfly sword, threatening the characters, saying like, soon the only thing that's moving on this planet's going to be my cum. None of you can defeat me. You know, and then he got eaten by rats. That was the end of it. But this audience, this was not just my friends. It was people who came from, you know, because they saw a thing in the New York Post, or because they just saw that there was improv down the street. People who had actually played in other Gorefest games that I hadn't been involved in because they found the rules. Like, there's a large group of people, all different ages, all different genders, all different walks of life. And they were all laughing raucously at all the Jeffrey Epstein shit. When I was at the Hillary Clinton event, people would come out of the Hillary Clinton line, the line where they were waiting to get their book signed with Hillary Clinton, and they'd see what we were protesting. They'd look at the signs. They'd be like, oh, yeah, he got fucking killed.
Yeah.
Like, it is broadly accepted.
Yes.
This is a big fucking moment.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes you'll see people post that black pill shit where it's like, it's disappearing from the narratives a little bit more every week, dude. Like, oh, man, the New York Times is going to start writing about Jeffrey Epstein pretty soon. It's like, fuck the New York Times. This isn't their ability to control what we talk about and what we think. Like, and when I say they, it's like, you know, just the big corporate media entities. Like, it's shrinking. And ultimately, we have more power than ever to determine what cultural narratives are going to progress into the future. And, you know, I think it's very important to progress this one specifically. So, yeah.
And one of the ways that your community is going about doing this, completely sort of separate from the print magazine or anything else involved in the Zone website, there is a game in development via the forums that you are partially writing.
Yeah.
Called Isle Diver, a video game where you're going to be able to explore and I guess solve mysteries and fight enemies on the Jeffrey Epstein pedophile island.
It's like Diablo. I mean, I think it'll probably be turn-based, but it's like it's a role-playing game with randomly generated dungeon levels, where in order to level up, you have to type up 500-word sections of court filings related to Jeffrey Epstein verbatim.
Yeah, which is an intensely deep way of sending that message. Because, like, I understand this as not only somebody who transcribes my own scripts to paper, but, like, somebody who understands psychology. When you have to type it yourself, you will remember it for the rest of your fucking life.
You will remember it for the rest of your fucking life. Yes, yeah. Exactly.
And you'll do it because you want to play the video game, and it's fucking hilarious. Like, all the ideas for it are funny as shit. But you're reading the real transcripts.
Yeah. And
and typing them.
I mean, we don't have, like, a release date or anything for that. I'm very excited for Isle Diver. We got really talented people working on it. And, yeah, I mean, but that's the example of the kind of thing that you can do with the internet. It's like, Isle Diver started because, like, I was up at 3 a.m. I couldn't sleep, and I ended up talking to a guy on the Zone who was like, "Hey, what should I do to contribute?" And I was like, "Well, what do you want to do?" And we started talking and just like shit posting funny things back and forth. And, you know, who knows who said it originally, but like 2 days later, there was a thread. Yeah. 3 days later, there was the first screenshot of the test model of the 3D Epstein Island. 4 days later, there were people posting the 500-word excerpts. And, like, that's how an idea metastasizes on the internet. Anyway, I think I'm losing my voice.
Yeah, no, we can wrap this up now.
Yeah.
This was excellent. You could be found at Dr. Don Jolly on Twitter, YouTube.com or Don Jolly. You're just called Don Jolly on YouTube.
I'm
all
just
these
Don
fucking
Jolly.
links
Yeah.
in the description. I'll even link your Patreon.
Your,
Encyclopedia.Zone. Go to the website. Go to the forums if you want to see cool people making cool shit live. And go to the fucking Dagger archives if you want to get a sense of like what the magazine is that will eventually. I mean, how similar is the physical release to the website version of Dagger?
I mean, the thing is, it's like it's a lot of the same artists. Things look different. I mean, the physical Dagger that we did, it is basically just like a print version of what I was doing on the website because I also did all the page layouts for that. Right. And actually, for the new one, we've got a graphic designer working with us named Alessandro Echevarria, and he's a fucking incredibly talented guy. He did the Encyclopedia.Zone logo and like all the presentation on the site, and he's going to be doing our print layouts. So it's I've seen the stuff that he's working on, and it's like it's really amazing. And if you like the internet version of it, you're gonna really like what we're working on for this print.
Check out Gorefest if you're into RPGs.
Yeah. And
keep an eye out for the live fucking shows. There's also a podcast connected to the Zone. Called The Beta Farm, which involves a few members of the forums and yourself and Kobold, who's here as well and in some of the other videos. He's in the other podcast we did. So that I liked the first episode of that a whole lot. It's taken over a month and there's no second episode yet. But and I wanted to ask you because there's lots of text and imagery on the Zone, but do you intend to do a lot of integration of video or sound posts onto it?
I might go back on it. I might go back on it, but I think for now it's gonna mostly be non-video integrated stuff.
Right. Just because text is the medium that's in more dire need, I think.
Well, I think so, and it's easier to transmit, and also I don't want to host a bunch of video or audio files, and I don't want to be relying on links that I don't control.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The one exception to that is the Beta Farm. The Beta Farm is mostly directed. It's edited by Andrew J. Wilson, who's Space Lions on the forum. And he's done some really excellent and pretty successful videos on the old Dagger channel as well. And he's sort of the driving force behind the Beta Farm. And the second episode that we're doing is taking so long because we kind of ended up with a high concept episode immediately. Yeah. Which is okay. So this is based on a real fact, which is that real dolls, men mutilate their real dolls.
Yeah, at
an alarming rate.
which was news to me as a man who literally one time gave sincere consideration to buying a real doll.
Okay.
When I was very lonely.
Yeah.
And I didn't do it because I thought if I buy this, I might cross a threshold where no woman will ever date me again.
Yeah.
And thankfully, not long after that, I met May. And but when you said that, I thought about it, and I was like, yeah, they would. Of course.
Yeah, of course they would.
Yeah, why wouldn't you? It's a fucking fake person. If you have any rage, you can take it out on this safely, but you are demented at the same time.
Well,
this is why it's really funny as a statistic. It's not quite horrifying. It's just hilarious.
So really. Our second episode is we're all working on parts of a noir detective story called "She Had Eyes Like a Doll." And it's about a detective. It's about a detective investigating the murder of a real doll, even though there are actual people being murdered, but he's not investigating
and the people around him are aware of how stupid what he's doing is as well. They're like, that's a real doll. You don't need to investigate it.
Well, but how many times have you seen a movie where it's that's a cold case, Ramirez. You don't need to be investigating that. It's but she was $18,000, Sam. Look at that. She's got hand-woven pubic hair. That doesn't just happen. That's love. That's care. Yeah. Anyway.
Look forward to all of that. Check everything out. I had a great time talking to you for the third time on podcast. And we've just been podcasting really nonstop.
Recorded and not recorded. Yeah.
If it weren't for, there's 3 videos that are going to come out on this channel. A video for yours, a compilation of vlogs that we're going to have to edit, I guess. Afterwards.
Yeah.
But yeah, like other than that, we've just been talking in the same exact fashion the whole time. So
it's been
maybe we'll have to. I mean, like podcasts are easy to record from a distance. So if we have any ideas of something like the Gamera collab,
I would love that. Yeah,
absolutely. I love doing podcasts. They are easy as fuck to produce.
Hell yeah.
That's it for this one, though.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Thanks again.
Bye.